regular meeting of the Fremont County School District #1 Board of Trustees. As always, the first item on the agenda is pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great, thank you. All right, board member roll call. It appears that we have everyone here in attendance tonight, which is the first time in quite a long time. It's just nice to see everyone, including, I might add, our student rep Dagan. So thank you for being here. Are there any additional agenda items for the agenda this evening? Hearing none, I'd like to get a motion for the adoption of the agenda as presented. Second. Discussion, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. I'd like to get a motion for the approval of the minutes for regular meeting on April 15th, for the regular meeting on May 6th, and the special meeting on May 13th, if it's okay for everyone. So moved.
I wasn't at the 13th, so I can't.
Okay, so we'll just mark hers.
Also myself.
Okay.
Or, yeah, just that one.
Let's do them separate. Let's do them separate. Okay, for April 15th. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Let's get a motion for regular meeting minutes for May 6th. So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. And for the special meeting of May 13th. So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? And abstentions?
Thank you.
Great, thanks. Mr. Harris, recognitions this evening.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have just a few recognitions today. We have a very full agenda, so I'll try to keep this brief, but there's just a lot of cool things going on. I have to say, if you ever need your bucket filled, you should find out what's going on at the LBHS auditorium and go to that thing, whatever it is. We've had a lot of cool things going on up there. Baldwin Creek had their student songwriter concerts last week. LBHS had the choir concert last night. I didn't get to see the Baldwin Creek concerts, but the LBHS concert last night was outstanding. The choir sounded beautiful. Dagan was there as part of Valley Singers, and that was one of the highlights for me was their rendition of Il Lampo. They sang it in Italian, very interesting song about lightning, very emotional, great song. And then the Sings Choir, the boys choir, did a rendition of The Highwaymen, if you know that song. And we have a kid up there that did a really darn good Johnny Cash impression. If you were there, you know what I'm talking about, but he shall remain unnamed. He was in all black, it worked perfectly. And there is a combo band choir tonight also. I apologize for the overlap, I wish I could be at that, no offense. But that is also so I want to just recognize and say thank you to all of our student musicians and their teachers for sharing their talent with us. Next item of recognition is on the LMS History Day front. So 8th graders Nora Strike and Alex Wise recently competed at the Wyoming State History Day competition in Laramie. Their project was entitled Right to Die, Balancing Individual Rights and Societal Responsibilities in History. So this is a cursory, shallow topic there. They earned first place honors and were awarded the prestigious Jim Gatchell History of Science Award for Excellence in the History of Medical Science. So not too shabby for two 8th graders from middle school. Nora and Alex are going to advance to the national competition, which is being held in early June in DC. But that's kind of old hat for them. They were there as 6th graders as well, and getting to bring that experience to bear here again this year. They devoted countless hours, balancing a lot of different commitments in and out of school to bring this project to life, all while juggling their responsibilities as student athletes as well. So their commitment is inspiring. It's just really, really cool and wonderful to see their hard work pay off. And I also wanted to mention their faculty sponsor, Stacy Polson. She has also a big role in guiding the project and helping these kids pull it off. So before we move on from this topic, I wanted to invite Mr. Morton to say a few words and say anything else about these students and the project.
I'm gonna bring them up. I just want to introduce them very quickly, and then I'm going to turn it over to them for bit about why they chose this particular topic, but when we talk about savers that exemplify what it is to be an outstanding citizen within our school, these two certainly are at the top of the list. And Mr. Horton and I feel blessed because they did bring us into the project a little bit. And so we got to be a part of it. And I feel that when a middle schooler lets you into their world, then you should feel blessed. So without further ado, Alex Wise and Norris Strike.
Yeah, so our project is, the right to die, so it's like, end of life decisions for people with terminal illnesses or who aren't gonna survive much longer. And yeah, it was a long process of making this project that, I mean, we only had like 4 months to make it before we had to compete, so it was really intense for a while. To push to finish it, and then competing was pretty stressful, but we think it went pretty good.
Do you guys have any questions? Mr. Chair, guys, do you mind sharing with us why this topic, or how you came to the decision of this topic?
Well, it was really hard to come up with a topic. Rights and responsibilities in history is not something that we talk about it a lot, and it's something that has like a really great history to it in many different aspects. But we were looking for something that strikes moral and legal problems and questions in history, and we found that there were a lot of personal cases, such as Karen and Quinlan and many others like Andy Cruzan, that had to fight with courts and people and their families and doctors to get how things that they felt were good for them and something that they truly believed in.
Yeah, so we went through a lot of different ideas, kind of around the medical world, and then we came across this topic and thought it just really connected well to us being rights and responsibilities. So that's how we ended up choosing this and did a lot of research and put a lot of time into making this project.
Anything else for you? As someone who have had people close to me face these exact questions, I can tell you that there's nothing more important or more personal than the topic you guys chose. And I really, really applaud you for taking on something this important and tough and difficult. So I think you guys deserve a big round of applause.
Switching gears to high school, so the girls track team, LHS track team, are the 3A West Regional Champs. I'm going to bring that up for all of you to hear about if you haven't already. There were several highlight performances. I just wanted to throw out there that the girls were in 3rd place after day 1, and then they just turned on the afterburners, saved the best for last on day 2, and ended up winning by over 30 points. That just seems to be a Lander thing nowadays. It's the kind of come from behind thing. So among the highlights were Adeline Anderson's discus throw, 161 feet 6 inches, which beat the previous school record, which had been around since 1997 by 11 feet. It's more than just eking it out. She absolutely curled that thing. She also took first in the shot put with a distance of 46 feet 6 inches. So those are both big league distances, if you know anything about high school track and field. Paisley Hollingshead also took first in 4 events, 100 meter hurdles, the 300 meter hurdles, the high jump, and the long jump. That's a clean sweep. You can only be in 4 events, so that is even more spectacular. Another highlight was the 4x400 relay team of Ava Gerlach, Katie Anderson, Eliza Scott, and Daisy Goplish. They took first with a time of 4 minutes, 9 seconds, and 5/100ths of a second. There were all kinds of kids scoring points and all kinds of contributions from all over the team. Not enough time to mention all of them, but I'm looking forward to seeing the team compete at state in Casper this weekend, along with the boys track and field team, and our soccer teams will be competing in Gillette for the state championships as well. So shout out to the Tiger boys and girls, and good luck this weekend at state. And then last but not least, we got some great news from the Wyoming Department of Education today. Every year they conduct a survey on how our district is doing with something called Indicator 13, which measures post-secondary transition planning for students who have individualized education programs. And they look at all these different pieces of the program for each kid. It's all very individualized, but Fremont One scored a score of 100% on that review, which is fantastic, and it's a bit of a streak. I won't say how many years, but they've got this down. I wanted to say a particular word of thanks to Crystal Combs Running Buck. She's our transition coordinator at the high schools. Ryan Sanchez and Casey Whithelm, our special education coordinators, and then Mindy Clancy, our student services director. So really, this is one of the most important ways that we realize our vision of post-secondary success for each and every student. And wanted to say job well done to all those folks. So, thank you.
Nice. Okay, so, excuse me, I'm sorry. This is the time of our meeting where we do some public comment. So we break this into two different sections. The first one is public comment on things that are on the agenda and what I need to know, not so much as the comments themselves, but rather the topic that you'll want to discuss. And we'll actually take those comments in line once we get to the topic. So let me know. So right now, real quick, does anyone have comments for anything that's on the agenda? Okay, just shout out the topic.
Coach Watson and wrestling, as well as the ag and FFA position.
Ag, okay. So ag and FFA, they're not on
Personnel.
personnel. Okay, so let me add that first. Okay, something else?
The gun-free zones conversation, I don't know if you want that comment now, since it's not an action item. I'll let you decide.
Where's our discussion? It's last one discussion. Sorry.
Other agenda topics? We'll have public comment.
I just have another comment on Coach Watson.
Okay. We'll cover those once we get to that section. Other agenda topics we'll have public comment on? All right, hearing none. How about public comment for things that are not on the agenda? Okay. I just wanted to, we'll get to it. I'll do that. So that's fine. Thank you. So we can move on to programs, report to presentations. I'll be sure to, if I forget, when we get to the topic, please let me know. Sometimes I get focused on the agenda here. It's on me. It's on me. Yeah, it's on me. So we'll do it. Okay, board member reports.
Mr. Chair. I'll make it pretty brief. Just wanted to kind of update you guys on what's going on at Baldwin Creek School. Last week they had the 4th and 5th grade music concerts, like Mr. Harris said. Students do a phenomenal job. Mr. Wilson worked so hard with them. They write and create their own songs, and the concert I attended, each night is different since obviously different classes create different songs, but the students created choreographed dances and instruments, and it was very well done. So kudos to Mr. Wilson and the custodians and everyone that puts in all that time and effort to make that happen, and administrators. Also, Baldwin Creek had their 4th grade track and field day today. I didn't attend that one, but I will be there Thursday, hopefully helping out and volunteering. So I'm excited to do that one in 5th grade. And then just a quick shout out to Mr. Whitmore. My 1st grade son had his music concert, and they also did a wonderful job. It was a Cinco de Mayo concert, and the theme was very fitting, and it was just a wonderful spring event, even though it snowed as the concert was over.
Great, thank you, Taylor. Other board reports?
Yeah, just got a brief update from Lander Middle School. So I don't have final numbers from them, but talking with Jade about their successes this year and some of the systems that they've implemented, they've seen great success, and some of the outtakes from that are significant reduction in targets and referrals and missing assignments, which are all pretty good data points to show things are moving in a positive direction. Just want to give a shout out to Jade and his crew there at LMS for their great work.
Great. Thanks, Scott. Eileen?
No, I was just gonna say, Mr. Chair, I saw you just stunning to see the talents of all of these students. And it included, you know, written material, metals, wood, there were just some exquisite furniture pieces, and then a lot of studio art. So just a real enjoyable evening, and I'm just stunned at how talented our students are.
Some crazy cool art, functional art pieces there, as well as some pretty neat fine art. There was a picture of a like an aged man, an old man there that was just phenomenal. I was really impressed with the talent. Any other board reports? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to Dagan's report.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Today was the seniors' last day. Finally, end prom was 2 weeks ago, I think. But that was fun. It was a night in Paris. We had the culinary classes make food for us, and it was very delicious. And the student council decorated the whole thing, and it was a pretty fun function, I think. And then, just in that final stretch of school, AP tests are done. Very proud of all the AP testers out there. And yeah, just trying to get through these last 2 weeks.
Keep pushing.
I'll try.
Thanks, Dave. All right, Mr. Harris, superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of items on here. I had a board member ask about how things are going with policy JICJ. Remember, that's the policy that governs cell phones and telecommunications devices in schools. We've made some changes there significantly, most significantly at the high school level. I asked both principals for like a little status update on how that's been going, and I'll share the comments that I received from both Principal Newendorf and Principal Wall at Pathfinder. So at LVHS, administration reported less than 10 phones taken and turned into the office since the policy took effect back in March. Only a couple repeat offenders, and there are some kids that you have to remind a couple times, but those are few and far between. Overall, the impression is that it's going remarkably well. And at Pathfinder, a similar story, only a few students have had to turn the phone at the office or had it confiscated and brought to the office. The vast majority put phones in their caddies without being reminded at this point. It's becoming a habit. One takeaway from this spring's implementation is at Pathfinder to definitely, and probably this would apply to LVHS would be to prepare parents and guardians for the policy well in advance. There's some parents that have been kind of alarmed that they weren't able to reach their student, you know, right on demand with a phone call or a text as they were used to doing. So it's just kind of helping everybody understand you can still reach your child, but it's to call the office instead of trying to get them directly on their cell phone. This is a huge one because I think this was one of the main impetus or reasons for the policy is that students are reporting fewer distractions. And that's a good thing because then they can focus on what we're hoping to have them focus on. I guess if there's anything else on that, I'd open it up to LVHS and Pathfinder principals if they have anything else to add. I'm seeing a head shake of no from Mr. Newendorf and same from Mrs. Wall too. Okay, great. A couple of other things on my report. Graduation events.
Before we, one quick question on that. We had originally, one of the questions we had was whether the caddies would be enough or if we needed to do something more significant than that. Was there any feedback about if this was effective enough to address the concerns you had?
Mr. Chair, from the impressions I got, based on the responses I got from the two head principals, I think this is working pretty well. I don't think there's any need at the moment for anything more intrusive than that. But again, time will tell, but it's off to a good start so far.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay. Just a reminder here, I know it's on the calendar down, or the agenda down at the bottom, but just wanted to remind everyone about graduation events. This is a huge milestone in the lives of these students who are going to be graduating, and it's a huge marker of our success as a school district. This is kind of the first step in realizing our vision. Our vision, again, is to ensure that every kid after high school is able to do something productive in terms of their career, whether that's going to college, going to military missions, whatever it is that they have to be doing. We want them to be well equipped to be successful in those endeavors. So getting that diploma is an important step in that process. I hope to see everybody at graduation Pathfinder on May 30th at 6 p.m. in this building in the gymnasium, and then LVHS on Sunday, June 1st at 1 p.m. And any staff members, whether you work for a high school or you work at an elementary or middle school, certainly the more the merrier. Come see your former students and be astonished at how big they've gotten and how accomplished they are as they graduate from these two schools. Another point here, my third point, would be about exit surveys. I know that's a key part of what we want to do when staff are departing the school district. It's that time of year again. I've started sending out those exit surveys to our departing staff and already collecting some responses, so I look forward to sharing those sort of aggregated results with the board in the future here. And then last but not least, we're starting something new at the school district this spring to kind of bookend the beginning of the year and the end of the year. There'll be an end of the year assembly on June 6th for all staff at 11 o'clock at LVHS Auditorium. And basically the idea is to wrap up the year, share some highlights of everything that happened this year in terms of student and staff achievement. And then staff will get together and enjoy a meal together on the house to close out the year. We're gonna walk over to the Pioneer Museum. We've got a bunch of food purchase, cakes, and to be determined entertainment options. But we will close out the year together and hopefully celebrate together one last time to end the 24-25 school year. Hey, Mr. Chair, that's how you
comes in.
Maybe.
I don't know whether any of the folks that are our staff that are eating will be paying attention tonight or not. We're only moving on to other topics, but it's really important that we do get those exit surveys done. And in the past, it's been hit or miss at the district. We made a big effort in trying to get these to be a consistent part of our processes. It's really important that we know the reasons, the honest and open reasons that people are leaving. We're going to improve open, honest feedback. So I really encourage anyone that is exiting to let us know what we can do better and what we're doing well. Just my plug for that. Okay, next on the agenda is executive session. So I need to get a motion for the adjournment of the meeting into executive session. Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. For those that are here, what happens now, we're going to go into executive session for as long as it takes for us to do some discussion that has to take place behind closed doors because it is related to matters of personnel. Shouldn't take, I hope, too long, and then we'll come back into session as soon as that's done. All right, thank you. Regular meeting back in session.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, sorry that took so long. You can blame Mr. Harris. He keeps his office stocked with candy bars. So it's his fault. Okay, personnel actions. We will do public comment here in just a bit. I haven't forgotten about it. I need to get a motion to accept the personnel actions as presented. Second. All right, discussion. Any discussion? Okay, so we can, I believe there was some public comment on the personnel actions. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. Oh.
I'm just stretching, sorry.
Oh. Oh, it's gonna be a long night. Okay. Go ahead and come on up, state your name.
I will start and
I'm sorry, before you do that, I was gonna say something, a little bit, both on this topic as well as the next. A few things. First of all, we do time, when we have this many people, we do time comments to 2 minutes. And the reason we do that is we want everyone to have a chance to have a say. We have had times where people would grandstand and people that did want to speak weren't able to. So we will time comments. It's really important as a board that we are careful in these kinds of situations to exercise decorum, both in terms of our students and our staffs. Privacy is important. We are ruled by some federal statutes regarding student privacy. That may or may not apply to comments in the, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know whether they apply, but I would certainly hope that we would be cautious about talking about students. And keep in mind that individuals that you may bring up that are employees have lives and jobs on the line. And as such, I would hope that whatever comments are made, that they're done professionally and with some orders in mind. Lastly, if you sent us email, believe me when I say we all read every single email that we get. So if you sent us email, don't feel like you need to reiterate what you said in that email. We did hear you, I promise, and it could be a long evening. So with that said, please come. State your name and you have to.
Yeah, use the
Oh.
mic, if you would, use the microphone.
Yes, I'd love to use my
Just
phone.
push up the turn. Or push it up.
My name is Brooke Williams. For those that don't know me, I wrote this down so I stay within a timely manner, because speaking is something I do. I am here to speak on behalf of my husband and our 2 sons, who have both been part of the LWHS wrestling team for the last 4 years. Colin is a senior, and he has wrestled for Coach Watson and his staff throughout that time, and Ty started his 6th grade year as a manager and just finished his freshman season with the team. Through this time, we've had the opportunity to watch Eric and his staff as they helped our boys not only with the physical strength and skills for the sport, but more importantly, tough and grit, determination, and the ability to face challenges when presented with them. Our boys have learned not all wins are victories, and not all losses are failures. How they conduct themselves and choose to grow from those lessons is truly what defines them. I truly believe that our kids have learned lessons that will last long after they step off the mat for the final time, and I contribute this strongly to the Tiger Wrestling Program and Eric Benson. As ag producers here in Fremont County, we know the many challenges that one can face producing cattle and feed, from nutrient programs, breeding and production, to crop rotation, soil sampling, and water efficiency. There's an endless amount of knowledge to be learned by our kids. Adding equipment operation, welding, life skills that can truly impact them for their future is a huge influence in our household, and I think in our community as a whole. I believe Eric brings a strong background in this area. We've had the pleasure of working with him in his current position and have seen huge changes in our production right now where he's at. We look forward to continuing our relationship in wrestling and starting a new chapter with Ty in FFA and the ag program. Thank you for your time.
Great, thank you. Any others on the personnel actions for the evening? The wrestling program would be the next topic, so this would be.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine, you talked about the ag positions. so
Okay,
that's fine.
great.
Okay, I have something to say about the ag program
Great.
and production.
Okay,
Is that okay?
Sure.
So my name is Abby Irvine, and, I actually had Mr. McConnell as an ag teacher when I was in high school.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And I learned a lot from ag. My oldest son is actually interested. When he found out that Coach Watson had applied for the ag position, the ag teacher position, he's like, I think I might try ag. And I think it's a good, not just learning lifelong skills through wrestling, but having, Watson as a teacher as well. I mean, he's shown, I feel like all the wrestlers that he cares for them. He's a great person. He definitely tries to keep relationships with them off of the mat, outside of school. But I definitely think that he would make a great fit as the ag teacher, and I really hope that he will continue to be the high school wrestling coach. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I do something on wrestling?
Is it good to do that, or do you want me to wait?
Probably wait for the next section, if you
Okay.
would, please.
Okay.
Anything else on personnel actions? Okay. Anything else from the board? All right, all those in favor? All right. Any opposed? All right, personnel actions carries. All right, so I need to get a motion for approval of the winter coaching recommendations as presented.
So moved.
Second. All right. We have discussion among the board first. I just wanted to make a couple statements that, just to clear up some misperceptions on this. There was a comment that we heard the last meeting that I should have mentioned at that time, that there was some kind of vote, a 3-3 vote that happened. No such vote actually happened at that meeting. The only vote relative to winter coaching recommendations was a unanimous vote to table until tonight's meeting. Just wanted to clarify that out there, that is a misperception. Also want to make it very clear to everyone that in executive sessions, no votes are taken. No actual votes or no sort of shadow votes, if you will. That's not how this board operates. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear for everyone. So any discussion here from the board? All right, so we'll open up to public comment on the winter coaching recommendations, which would include wrestling.
Okay. I also wrote this down.
Microphone, please.
Oh. Okay, I am here today to show my support for Coach Watson, Gasaway, Klein, and Weil. I have had the opportunity to be a Tiger wrestling parent for the last 3 years. Over those years, I have learned and been witness to a lot. These coaches have continued to amaze me with their consistent dedication year-round to each one of the wrestlers on the team. I have never seen a more committed group of individuals, and it truly is an inspiration. Each one of these coaches brings a unique personality to the team with one common goal in mind: to teach young men and women not just the sport of wrestling, but how to continue to succeed in all avenues of life. They dedicate time outside of regular sports seasons, not just starting in November and ending in February, but instead showing up year-round. In spring, you can find them outside coaching the younger kids and high schoolers that have decided to continue wrestling in the off-season. In summer, you can find them volunteering their time and hours for wrestling camps and board camps. They often miss out on things with their own families to be there for their wrestling family. If a child is struggling, whether it be with behavior, in school, or with family matters, you better believe these coaches will be there for them. They will show up to a wrestler's home to talk about goals with their parents, to address concerns, and to help them through anything they might be facing. They are teaching the next generation of adults to be leaders. They believe in these athletes even when it's hard. If you question their ability to make a difference, just look at the statistics. Our wrestling program is doing better than it has in years, winning more and placing higher. That isn't by sheer luck. If you still question, I encourage you to show up at a tournament or a duel and watch the coaches. Their interactions with the kids. Pay attention, because what you will see will wash away any doubt that you might have. My daughter may be graduating high school, so that part of our wrestling journey is done. But I truly look forward to spending the next few years watching my son grow with this set of coaches, because I know they will teach him to be the very best he can be on and off the mat.
Ma'am, I missed your name. What was your?
I'm Molly Cook.
Great.
My children are Jordan and Colton Nielsen.
Thank you, appreciate it. As far as the microphone, just so everyone knows, even though my wife does say I'm hard of hearing, it's not because I can't hear you, it's because the folks on Zoom can't hear if we don't use the microphone. Other comments?
Justice Jacobs. I have a letter I'd like to share that I wrote last night, okay, Mr. Chair.
Please.
Thank you for allowing me to speak in support of Coach Eric Watson. I met Eric Watson in 2021 and have been watching him foster and grow many young wrestlers. I look forward to watching Coach Watson's support. I look forward to watching Coach Watson continue to have a positive impact on Landers wrestling community, as well as ag students at LDHS. It has come to my attention that there are a few families, maybe one in particular, that have been pushing for Watson to not be rehired as head coach. And in order for me to give my recommendation, I need to provide some context. I'm a former LBHS wrestler and have been involved with wrestling for many years. Niner Tiger Tough Wrestling Club was started around 2003 by Coach Morton when he was the head wrestling coach for LBHS. This club was then passed down to several other wrestling coaches and families involved in the program over the years, including Coach Adams and Coach Fulton, among others. The intention of the club was to be a feeder program to the LBHS wrestling program, and for most of its history, it's been run by a rotating board that would serve for a few years and then pass the baton to the next families with young children. These boards would work and collaborate with the Land Wrestling coach. However, about 9 or 10 seasons ago, there was a shift. A few families have made the program their own and not the community's. They have used the program for personal gain and have acted in ways very counter to what wrestling stands for, to include hard work, dedication, finishing what was started, learning more from losses than wins, and respecting others. The drama in the wrestling community has been going on long before Coach Watson began his time at LBHS. 9 seasons ago, my wife and I registered our oldest son in Tiger Tough, excited to be a part of the culture. Shortly thereafter, we were approached by a handful of families that were very frustrated with the Tiger Tough wrestling program. Some of the many frustrations were lack of communication, lack of transparency, the financials, favoritism towards the same kids, using the club's money to travel to large national competitions with no rubric or voting by the board on which kids should be chosen. We know several families. Is that my time? Okay. Thanks.
Problem solving, that's right.
We know several families quit wrestling altogether due to frustrations on how the club was run by a few select board members. It got so toxic around 2018. Some parents started their own club in Hudson and practiced at Sunrise School, running a very successful, robust program that hit its demise during COVID due to not having a facility to practice at. At the time, we chose to stay at Lander as we didn't have history on context of issues, but as time went on, we realized all our accusations were fully warranted. We attempted to try and support the program and be a part of the solution. However, it was clear that a few select members wanted to have control, and it made it difficult for Coach Watson to be involved when he did become high school wrestler. In January 2025, my family, Coach Watson, and a handful of other families who have a long history in the wrestling community made the decision to start a new wrestling program. It was a difficult decision and one that took lots of thought, as it wasn't to split or divide the wrestling community. The numbers, however, have spoken for themselves, as we have had almost 100 wrestlers affiliated with our club in just a few short months. It is a clear indication that many families respect Coach Watson and provide his leadership. A few of these families that don't share the same vision as Coach Watson have to fire him and his staff. It is common to have some families or students gravitate towards some coaches more than others, and they not get along with all the staff. It is very rare to see a small number close to all the coaching staff, and it also seems to be ironic of one of the families not getting the assistant coaching position themselves. When wrestling season ends for the athletes, it's just beginning for Coach Watson. He volunteers countless hours and resources for the Land Wrestling program. He fundraising, raising money from local businesses and community members since he began coaching in 2021. He has raised money privately for 5 new wrestling matches, each of which are $14,000 alone in his time. His dedication. Thank you for your time.
Good job. All right. Any others? Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Todd Williams, son of Naomi. This past wrestling season, I ended up taking the state finals home for Lander. I'd like to speak on behalf of the whole wrestling team, or majority of it at least, on saying that Watson isn't just a coach, I mean the whole coaching staff. They have our backs consistent. I mean, whether it be calling us to do a job for them, to pick up a lunch or cash, or when you're on the side of a mat with your shoulder out of place and coach is there to put it back in for you and help you get back up. Wrestling is a brutal sport, and it always has been and probably always will be. Having a coach that has your back and knows like how to help you and how to help you get back up and get ready for that next match, or stand back up and get back into practice the next week so you can be better the next tournament. It's crucial. I mean, the amount of times that I've tried and failed at one thing or another in this sport is more than I'd like to recount. I've been to national tournaments across the majority of the west part of the United States, and a lot of them have been given to me as a gift, not monetarily, but through the skills that I've accumulated wrestling for the Lander Valley High School. The past 4 years, I've practiced with the team through my managing throughout middle school. I got to practice with the team, go to tournaments and record matches, and learn more than I can even imagine, allowing me to go from I'm pretty sure I got 5th or 6th at conference my 6th grade year, to winning it the next 2 years throughout middle school. The skills that I've gotten and built using the Lander Valley High School wrestling team with its current staff has allowed me to do some of the accomplishments that I've gotten, such as at Black Hills Nationals, I ended up taking 2nd, and a big part of that was having the coaching staff there and being able to be there for me, allowing for me to take that home. So, thank you guys for your time.
Hi, I'm Colin McWilliams. Get the family out of the way. But obviously, I'm here tonight in support of Eric Watson and his coaching staff. I wrestled at LVHS for the past 4 years, and wrestling aside, my time with Watson has truly changed the way I view leadership and perseverance as a whole. I think beyond anything related to sports, again, that I've become a better person from my time spent with these coaches and with the team as a whole. And ultimately, I think that's shown by the amount of people here tonight in support of the current coaching staff. Thank you.
Chris Jones, didn't write a speech, this is gonna go south pretty quick, but my kid is a senior, he's been in the wrestling program since he was 5. He's been with Coach Watson his whole high school career. Worked summers with Coach Watson. So what I would just like to say is, it's not just the wrestling skills. Landon has mental part of that sport. Found success this year just over, that's not wrestling skills, that's communication, relationships, other things he's brought to that we haven't talked about. He's brought other stuff to the program. If you meet his wife and kids, you know, the coaching staff he's brought in, to not hire him back as coach, I know we just did the teacher thing, but that's a community person right there. That family is good, good for our community. And I personally want to apologize that you have to even go through this. But that's youth sports these days, right? We're gonna be dealing with this with other sports. We have dealt with it in the past. And it's embarrassing that you have to go through this. And I'm glad you stuck with it. And I just wanna say, I hope this stuff kind of ends with, you know, we need coaches, we need refs, we need people not to be put under fire for things they shouldn't be. So, thank you.
Hi, I'm Jordan Nielsen. I've been
wrestling for the last 3 years, and when I first started, I was a little bit iffy on whether or not to join it, because it was the first year that we weren't allowed to. And instead of me putting on my big old hands, I had my mom go talk to Watson and see how that program would work if I had even considered it. And one thing he said is, it doesn't matter if you're a female or a male, when you step in that ring, you're a wrestler. And at first, that was scary, but when I showed up, he treated me as if I was one of his own. And he has continued that for the last 3 years. And unfortunately, I'm graduating this year, so I don't get to go for an entire 4 years like some of my family members. But when I first started, I had no clue what I was doing. And Watson didn't get impatient. He sat there and he worked with me throughout the season and throughout the summers. And no matter what I needed, if it was, even if it wasn't with wrestling, if it was with family things, he was there for me, no matter what. If I couldn't talk to my mom about it, I could always talk to coach about it. And that's just kind of the person he is. No matter who you are, what your background is, he will be there for you. He does not judge that. Me personally, I did send out an email, so some of you guys do know my background with certain things, and he has helped me immensely through some of those struggles that I've had. And I hope that he can continue to be a coach. I fully support that, because it's not just me that goes through those things that I said in that email. It is so many people, and if he is willing and able to help me, he's willing and able to help a ton more people that just aren't ready to stand up and say it yet. So I hope that we can continue with our staff that we have now. As you've seen in the numbers that are here to support him, you can tell that he is making a difference, not just in the wrestling program, but the community itself. And Watson, I just want to say thank you so much. You really, really did save my life. So.
Okay. Is there anyone else? Seeing none, is there anything else from the board on this? Alright. All those in favor? Say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, I need to get a motion for the approval of meal prices for fiscal year 2025-2026. Is there any discussion on this exciting topic? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Since Travis isn't here, I'm gonna have to hear from you, I think, on this, next one, Mr. Harris. I need a motion to accept the bid proposal to replace the facility access platform. Mr. Harris, I'd like to discuss this.
I'll do my best, Mr. Chair. So what this proposal is for is to replace door lock systems in the school district. We use a card key system, and unfortunately that system is based on technology that's out of date. It's vulnerable to certain security breaches, I suppose. I guess I could say that. One of the pieces of it that we're looking to upgrade is the ability of the door lock system to integrate with cameras. So we can actually train the camera when a door is accessed after certain hours to zoom in on that doorway and see what's going on, who's coming in and out, who's attempting to come in and out. It's expensive, but this would be major maintenance funds. And if approved, this would be in place prior to the start of the next school year, which we think is a pretty important thing just because of the status of the technology and kind of firm things up a little bit from a security standpoint.
Discussion. For those who may not have considered this, it is an expensive outlay. It's $774,396. Mr. Harris, is this? I know this is a safety issue. Do you think that this is something that's designed to do?
Mr. Chair, yes, but without going into too much detail, there are existing vulnerabilities that are significant, and we're concerned about the ongoing security of our schools, our school buildings, without an upgrade.
Other discussion? All right, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, policy review. So we've got, second reading, we have 3 of these. We probably should do at least the first one independent, so I'd like to get a motion to approve policy BEDJ, streaming and recording meetings.
So moved.
Second. The policy is outlined. I don't believe, Mike, were there any changes since our first reading?
Mr. Chair, no, there were no changes from first reading.
Okay. All right, any discussion on this? Discussion. All right, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Need to, let's, these are both deletions, is that correct?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair, that's correct.
I'd like to get a motion for the deletion of both JFCG and KBC. These are, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but these are basically, just reiterations of the same kind of policy that we already have in place.
Exactly, Mr. Chair, so these ones specifically deal with students, the JFCG is specifically for students, and then KBC is about community members. And, we previously passed a revision of another policy that just kind of encompasses all parties on school district property that were in 18 for the district.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we have some proposed handbook changes. I'm gonna see if I can make this work. I'd like to get a motion for the approval of all of the handbook changes for LHS, DHS, LMS, DCE, and GPE for 25-26. Any discussion on these?
Mr. Chair, if I could, only one school had revisions from what you all saw at the first reading last month, and that one school was Baldwin Creek Elementary. There were a couple components, and Principal Hickler did a nice job of highlighting those changes, and strike-throughs were appropriate. One change was about the Student Attendance Review Board, which is no longer functioning in the district. We just made a reference instead to policy JER, which deals with student attendance. Then the other change was to include information about the family engagement team as opposed to a school-based parent information, parents interested in education or parents involved in education. So those were the 2 changes from first reading for Baldwin Creek.
Other discussion on these? You know, the one thing I would want to mention is, Principal Wall, really love the responsibility piece that you have. I think that's pretty cool. I like that. The other question I had, I noticed on the cell phone policy that both first and second offenses are the exact same thing. Phones are taken to the office and picked up afterwards. Is there any discussion about the possibility of the second offense being a parent pickup?
Mr. Chair, in the student handbook as opposed to the policy, I'm not sure, maybe Ms.
Is that what I'm sorry, does the policy say?
I don't recall off the top of my
I
head.
didn't think we put actual ramifications in the policy.
I have to look it up.
Yeah. So I just wondered if maybe that should be an escalation deal in the handbook, or if that becomes an issue.
Do you want me to speak to that?
Sure.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. So on the first offense, if they get their cell phone taken away, like if it's in the morning, they can get it at lunch. In the afternoon, they can get it at the end of the day. And then if it's the second offense, then they turn it in the office and they don't get it till the end of the day.
Okay.
But if it's last block, I mean, it's still, we decided not to have parents pick up cell phones because we have parents that work in Riverton. And so their students getting out of school at 3:30 and they might need to drive home, different things, and parents wanna be able to get a hold of them. We don't want parents to have to leave work to come pick up a cell phone. And then on the third offense, they turn it in when they walk in the morning, and then they pick it up at the end of the day. Every day.
that's not clear in those.
So there, in essence, there is an escalation in
Yes.
that respect.
Yes, it just really depends on when it gets taken away,
I got
because,
you.
you know, if it's at 3 o'clock, it's only 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But we just do it by day, and that's how we track it.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
I'd also just like to throw in, sometimes it's helpful to have a little leeway with students, like, give me your phone now and you'll get it back at the end of the day, instead of escalating and then accuse behavior.
Well, normally I wouldn't get to this granular level of questioning, but it's in the handbook, so it's one of those areas where you end up doing it. Okay. Other discussion on these? All right, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. These are always my favorite ones. I'd like to get a motion for the approval of monetary donations, both from Lore, one in the amount of $10,000, and that is for the backpack program. And the other, also from Lore, is to improve track and field safety at LHS, to the tune of $7,790.
I will make that motion, but I believe the first one is from the Lander Community Foundation for the backpack program, so I just amend that.
Gotcha, so it's from Lore via the Lander Community Foundation. Okay, your second?
I'll second.
As always, we appreciate both the Lander Community Foundation and Lore for their generous donations here to the schools. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item H, I'd like to get a motion to table item H. So moved. Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. This is an interesting one. No, that's the other. So I need to get a motion for request for use of depreciation reserve account funds for replacement of the digital sign in front of LHS. Second. For those who may not have this, the bid is from ABC Sign Inc. in Riverton. So it is, while the company, it is a total of, holy cow, $52,208.25. Mr. Harris, can you let us know, did we get other bids on this?
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure how many other bids may have come in on this. This is the only one that was attached with the memo. And I wasn't able to ask Travis before he left town, so I'm not sure about the other bids may have come in. Mr. Newberg.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, we did get one other bid. It was considerably more than that, so we just turned into one bid that was that.
Thank you, Mr. Newberg. So we did get a second bid, that was my big question. It's actually nice that we got another bid on this, because we don't get second bid. Any other discussion on this? What's the impetus here, why do we need to change our sign at the school?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, the sign is not functional at this point, so it doesn't work at all. It's a key piece of like just last minute reminders for parents as they're dropping off kids as they're coming to class, so it's an important piece that we'd like to get functioning, yeah.
Sometimes at furniture stores, they have the guys that spin little signs out front, and we can do that, that's a lot cheaper. All right, any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, get a motion for the approval of the CWC BOCES 2025-2026 budget. Moved. I think who's our BOCES?
That is me.
That's you.
So BOCES is our Board of Cooperative Higher Education, so they do ACT testing funding and concurrent, I always confuse these, which they do all concurrent enrollment classes. Some kids are attending
So it's managed through one entity, but the funding is.
Any discussion or questions for Mr. Jensen on this?
Mr. Chair, if I could just add on to what, Mr. Jensen was saying, that the funding for CWC Bochis comes from mill levies. We have a half mill in Fremont County, Hot Springs County has somewhat less, I think it's a quarter mill or something like that. So basically, the decreased valuation in Fremont County is prompting these changes. They have less revenue from the mill, which means they can't offer the same level of services. So the estimate, as you can see in the attachments for the agenda, without changes, the dual credit program in Fremont County is estimated to be about $320,000 over budget, which is not sustainable. So what basically the CWC Bochis is providing us with is a proposal to cap the enrollment in dual enrollment classes at 10 per student in their high school career. There was no cap previously, but as you can see in the second handout, that's the proposal. LHS students usually take 1 or 2 classes, and we had 1 student this school year who took a 4th class. So if we limit that, most of the kids are still able to take 1 or 2 classes per year, and they would not be affected. But some of these other schools, let's see here, Frontier Academy in Riverton has a few more kids taking 3 and 4 classes, and there are several homeschool families that have students who are taking 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 classes per school year. And that's where the sustainability comes in with the funding that Bochis is able to generate. So that's really what's at stake, is just the reduction. They did say they wanted to grandfather in the class of 2026. So Dagan and her classmates, you can still take up to 3 enrollment classes per semester. So that would not affect those seniors. But juniors, sophomores, and freshmen would be limited to 10 total.
So I'm a little slow, Mike, so help me out here. We're over budget, but, so we're gonna cap the number of classes that the kids can take, but we don't think that's gonna impact anyone, so how does that help our budget?
Mr. Chair, it's a good question, but I think that the cost for all the other, I think if you look at that proposal document, and I don't speak for Matthew Johnson, I just only have what he sent me.
Okay.
But they think that will keep up the difference, that will make up the difference, and I'm not sure exactly on the math. But one other thing that they're holding constant on is just their expenditures, like any of their staffing, their benefits. They're not having any funding in their budget, no raises for the personnel who are involved here.
I think part of it is for Fremont One, we actually utilize this less than a lot of the other districts in the town. So our kids do a lot more with the AP classes, and less with the dual curriculum. So we're probably not going to be affected so much.
It would mainly just be impacting homeschool families if they were to take more than, like, how it shows on this grid, that some are taking 8 a semester or a year, I guess. So essentially, it's just putting a cap to those families of 10 classes for a total high school career.
Okay.
So not really an impact to us, but it will, those enrollment numbers dropping for homeschool families will help the budget.
Great, thank you guys for clarifying that.
But there also, Mr. Chair, will be no longer one free ACT test for all Fremont County students, because that's part of the budget.
How much is that? The ACTP student?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Neuendorf or Ms. Wall may have to chime in here, but I want to say like $60, $75 a test.
Yes.
In that neighborhood.
Yeah.
Mr. Newell.
But Mr. Chair, members of the board, I'll also remind the board that the school pays for, or the state pays for the junior class. And a couple years ago, we began also paying for the second one that they will take as a fall senior and provide that in class time. So in reality, all of our kids have the option of 2 free ACT tests. Bochis always offered a voucher for another one, which is nice, and it is a bummer that that's going away. But our kids still have 2 free opportunities to take that test.
Gotcha.
During school time in the school building with our resources.
Okay, perfect. That's what I was worried about. Thanks. Any other discussion on this? All right, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Carol, we have one abstention on that. Mara was saying.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we are done with action items this evening. We can move into discussion. So policy JICHA year-end review, this is the drug testing for students and extracurricular activities. Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the board, this being our first full year of implementation under this policy, JICHA, wanted to bring forward some information about how it's gone, some statistics and then some impressions and possibly suggestions for revision going forward. Just as some general facts, this again our first and only year of implementation of this policy so far. I put a link in the attachment there. Sports Safe LLC is our testing partner. If anybody has questions about the work that they do. Cost is often mentioned. I get questions about cost per test and total cost. As of last Thursday, the district had spent $46,934 on testing. That equates to 1,514 tests. We've had 7 positive tests out of all those, and 5 students accounted for those 7 positive tests. So that means a couple had twice positive. Total percentage of positive tests of all the ones that were conducted is about 0.5%. Those are the general numbers. The concerns, obviously, that were brought forward that I've heard from not only administrative team members, but from other parents and school staff and others in the community, just cost overall, impact on students' instructional time. I think our secondary principals can speak a little bit on that, but unfortunately, the time to get students is when they're at school. So that means there's an impact for pulling them from class to conduct testing, and a lot of times students aren't ready yet to provide a sample when they're called down, so they will sit and drink water, and we will wait until they can provide a sample, and that adds up, particularly for some students who are sort of gaming that process, unfortunately. The other impact on time has to do with staff. Our activities director, if he were here tonight, would be able to share that he thinks this has probably increased to maybe 25% of his total time spending on testing, with all the initial testing and the retesting throughout the sports seasons. That is significant. With office staff, that's also an impact, as we have front office folks and nurses and secretaries and principals who are calling kids down, supervising in the commons area, supervising bathrooms, working with the testing company to collect specimens and get them labeled and sent off. That all has an impact as well. And then the impact, obviously, for teachers, on the flip side of the instructional time lost is, that's equating to some reteaching for kids who are out for key moments in the day or need to retake an assessment or things like that because they've been pulled for testing. So those are some concerns. The scope is also a concern. We're testing an awful lot of kids. Our current policy encompasses kids in 6th grade through 12th grade in pretty much any school district activity, particularly those that are sponsored by the Wyoming High School Activities Association. And then the return on investment, clearly when we've got increasing budgetary pressures and declining enrollment, revenue questions with the state, there have been questions posed to me about the efficacy of spending this amount of money on testing for the return of 0.5% of positive tests out of the total. So that being the case with some of the concerns, no one is in favor of scrapping the drug testing program. I do think it provides a valuable incentive for kids to choose to not participate in drugs and alcohol. And we've heard that from students, we've heard that from staff and coaches as well. I think what the administration is recommending is to kind of reduce the scope, perhaps by eliminating the 100% testing for every student during every activity. If you have a middle school student who participates in every sports season, that's 5 initial tests that are required for those activities, plus they're in the pool for random testing. Random testing, our administration is kind of in favor of maintaining the random component. There's some discussion on the team about random testing in season versus random testing out of season. Some of our administrators feel that out of season is not appropriate. Others still feel that random testing out of season is appropriate as a deterrent, but maybe differentiating the percentages that we're drawing to create those pools on the random side. Something I've heard from several different staff members, including administrators, is that the 6th and 7th grade students, a lot of them have a lot of intrepidation about the drug testing process, and what's required to provide a sample. A lot of kids have been really nervous. We've heard that there's some kids that don't want to participate in activities because of that. How do you quantify that, though? I'm not really sure, because they don't typically come tell the superintendent they're not going to participate. But they will mention that to their friends, and friends tell coaches, and administrators hear that kind of roundabout. And then last but not least, we did notice a couple of policy inconsistencies that definitely need to be corrected, one way or the other, regardless of what happens with the previous items. But concerning students who quit an activity, one part of the policy says they're removed from the random pool if they quit. Another part says they can be removed, but they have to sign a form. So we did have one incident this year where a student quit, but was still in the random pool, and there was some confusion about what was going on there. Were we allowed to test the student or not? So just clearing that up. And then the other discrepancy is a difference between our policy and our code of conduct. Code of conduct says athletes don't participate during an appeal. Policy says they do participate. This has not come up because we've not had an appeal, but it's likely in the future that it would. Our administration and my recommendation would be to align both documents with the current code of conduct, which would be no participation during an appeal. I think that's a little easier, and probably more valid, given that the low percentage of false positives that are possible with these samples are collected. And that's pretty much the one pager. I guess if entertaining any questions or comments from board members and administrators are free to add their perspectives as well.
Mike, do you have a sense of what percentage of the student body was participating in activities this year as compared to previous?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Jensen, I don't have a percentage. I know we've had seriously high participation rates in the past, upwards of 80%. I don't know where that stands currently. I was not able to get that information from our activities director prior to.
That'd be good. Piece to follow up, and that's a key metric for judging the success of the program. And that's one thing that really matters. If we have a sort of significant decline in participation, that would be a concern. If we have an increase, that would be interesting. Another question, what grades did positive testing from?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Jensen, the positive tests, we had one student at the middle school who I without divulging too much, one middle school student, and then the rest were high school students, mostly seniors. So, yeah, with the low number, I don't want to say too much because it might be easy to identify. Mark?
Mr. Chair, Superintendent Harris, I know we discussed in our last meeting that a budget has already been allocated for next year for drug testing. If we were to cut back the quantity of drug tests we use, could that, any of that budget be reallocated to, say, a softball team or a robotics club or?
Mr. Chair, Ms. Gantz, absolutely, it's a budget amendment, so, and this budget for 25-26 is still in the preliminary phase. So if there was some reallocation of some budgetary amount from expenditure code to expenditure code, that's still easy to accomplish before July, when you all vote to approve the final budget.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Superintendent Harris, thank you for this information, it's really helpful. I will say, I do remember you saying at the beginning of the year that it hadn't impacted enrollment in our fall sports, but yeah, I think it would be helpful to have that update at some point when we can. I am very proud of the policy. I am also very proud of us taking the time to review and reconsider, and I believe that these suggestions make sense, especially with the budgetary concerns, and just seeing the numbers speak for themselves. And so I would be in favor of these recommendations. I certainly think that announcing a word drug testing on this day for all students, probably you're not going to catch a lot of them. So I would say reducing the 100% testing for every student is going to help, and focusing on those random tests. I'm not sure how I feel about the 6th and 7th grade students. My son, 7th grader, has tested. I'm sure between male and female it might be different or certain tests, but I do know middle schoolers in general are testing more because they are doing more sports, and that to me seems seems silly. But hearing that one of those tests was a middle schooler is interesting to hear, because I would have assumed they were all high schoolers. So overall, though, I think I would be in favor of all the suggestions and for changes.
other discussion? Okay.
Mr. Chair, did the UAs or names ring a random or at the?
Mr. Chair, if I didn't characterize them that way in my notes, but I would say probably the majority were in season, not initial.
And I would agree with that, plan UAs. You give somebody time to study.
Mr. Chair, and Ms. Harms, yeah, that's part of the issue with the initial testing at the start of the season. Kids know that the testing window stops, and that the enrollment for an activity stops after a certain date. So if you were nefarious and thinking you were gonna only use when they're not checking, you might wait that period out and then try again later on. I don't know how much that's entering into the mind of kids who are in this position or not. It's a possibility.
Others? Mark?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I just wanna, emphasize that while I think this is a great way to reduce drug testing, I also think participation in activities from sports to music to arts are other great ways to reduce drug use by giving students healthy hobbies. And I know we've had several propositions, there may even be people in the audience who I know have propositions for ways to support music, other sports, other clubs, and as we think about where that money comes from, I think this, in my opinion, is an appealing option to look at, if we can provide additional opportunities as another way to give students an alternative to using drugs. So that would be my suggestion, is that we see what we can protect in this while also carving out of it to support some alternative activities, because I know there's people in this community who want to see more.
I appreciate the fact that we are reviewing this, and I think when we developed this, the idea was, this is our first stab, and we're gonna review it, and we're going to see if we can improve it over time. I don't know, at least when I was looking at this to begin with, I certainly didn't anticipate I'll probably want a 7th grader to test 5 times throughout the year for each sport. So I do think that we should probably look at reducing those kinds of numbers. I like that. Personally, I would prefer to keep 6th and 7th in the mix, but we can certainly hash that out over time. I think, probably correct me if I'm wrong, but I think like the next step here would be to put this into a policy recommendation and get the board's opinion on that policy recommendation next.
Mr. Chair, that's correct. I'm hoping for some direction on that, and then I can bring something forward for first reading.
Well, let's, I think these are, this is a good starting place, so let's go ahead and put these in, and then I can arm wrestle the board over the 6th and 7th grade issue over through amendments, but let's keep that in there when we start. Maybe we can look at that first reading in June. Yes.
You'll have number of participation, would you?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Jensen, yes, I'll collect that.
Great. Thank you. Anything else on this one? Okay, great.
Thank you.
All right. Fremont #1 music programs, discuss music programs throughout the district. I know there is some public comment on this, so we'll carve out some time after discussion for public comment. Mike, would you like to kick this one off?
Sure, Mr. Chair, members of the board, community members, staff, I think we've had a lot of comments shared with us and conversations with folks, parents, and others about music programs in our district and how valuable they are, and I can't say emphatically enough how much I agree. If you paid attention to these meetings, you hear the comments from myself and from other from the board about how valuable these programs are, how much we enjoy attending them and seeing our kids build skills in these areas to know how to perform a task and to share a skill on demand, whether it's on a wrestling mat, on a stage, on a riser, with a horn, whatever it is. That is hugely valuable and part of their development as a young person. So it's super, super important. So the recent meetings that I've had with staff and parents, and some have also been had with other administrators in the district, are about how to strengthen what we offer here at Fremont One. At least that's the takeaway that I'm hearing. There's some concern about parity with other elective subject areas. that's been expressed to me, for example, like, why do we have this many teachers in this elective area, but in music we only have this many? There's concern about high student numbers in certain music classes, particularly at LMS and LDHS, where we have halftime band at LMS and halftime band. There's a split between the two buildings, which makes a difficult situation for the certified staff member at times with those high numbers. So those are the concerns. I've collected some data from different, from the two schools, from 6th and 7th grade, 8th grade, and then at the high school for both band and choir. If there's a question about the student numbers in any of those areas, the middle school recently sent a survey to parents, asking parents if they are planning to have their student enrolled in band and choir, and I have those preliminary responses. Obviously, that's gonna stay open the rest of the summer and up until after the school year starts, but I can give you a snapshot of that. There's been concern about workload for our staff, particularly for the high school, as there's a lot of hours required after school and in the summer, in some cases for band and for choir. So a lot of concern. There's also been a lot of solutions thrown forward and shared. One solution would be to hire more music teachers. I heard that certainly, that's difficult right now with the budgetary situation. I heard another proposal that was probably not super popular, but that would be to limit student enrollment in certain classes. That would just be to keep the numbers manageable. But obviously that decreases opportunities for kids, which is not my favorite. Another suggestion that I heard recently was to revamp course offerings and adjust rosters to sort of distribute students more evenly among the various class periods where the music teacher is in that building. And that has some promise. And then there was a suggestion to free up an elementary music teacher to come help with band at LMS, because that's where we have a huge number of students, in particular the beginning band at 6th grade. Final suggestion that I heard that I wanted to just bring to the floor is there a way to invite parents and community volunteers to assist with music instruction in our schools? We have a lot of people who are very well versed in a particular music instrument or in choir or piano. Can they help us out here and there with some dedicated time to help our young people in this area in the event that we are not able to hire more music teachers or do any of the other suggestions here? So I guess that's kind of the preliminary foundation for the conversation, and I guess I would look forward to the rest of the discussion and how we can make things better.
Discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Harris, so, no ability to hire more music teachers.
Mr. Chair, Ms. Grew,
Gonna flip that one.
so again, it's just a matter of budgetary priorities. So when we have declining enrollment, it's a difficult situation we're reducing through attrition as much as we possibly can, because the major expenditure in the budget is staffing. To add more staff and sort of take away from that effort to balance the budget is difficult. Not impossible, but that would require a trade-off somewhere else in the budget. So that's not an impossibility, although it would be very difficult, because we would be making a change that would either result in increased class sizes somewhere else, or would be taking away from another area of the budget, say activities, for example. That's probably a likelihood that you have to, you're taking from one area to give to another area where the pot of revenue doesn't change. So is it a possibility? Absolutely. Everything's on the table as you all consider the budget for 25-26, but that is a tough proposition. Up to this point, we've been in a position to tell administrators and hiring managers we're looking to reduce in order to meet our expected revenue. So it's not an impossibility, but it would require some sacrifice.
Real quick, like Taylor, sorry, for those that are here that don't just eat, breathe, and sweep the budgetary concerns of the district. I know you're all really interested in this, but it's a little confusing when we're talking about spending $700,000 on new locks and $58,000 on a new sign. Why couldn't we just use that money? Those actually come from completely different places, and you can't borrow from one and put it in another. For example, we couldn't say, well, we're gonna get rid of the LVHS sign and hire another band teacher. It doesn't work that way. The state allocates those funds very specifically, and we have to use those funds very specifically. So those things come out of this, major capital and appreciation fund that we can keep for those kinds of expenditures. Specifically, things we're talking about comes from our general funds. And in our general fund, 80% of all the money that comes in goes back out to the district salaries. So everything else from, you know, vacuum filters to goodness knows what, gas to cars to get gas for the buses and everything else, that comes out of that additional 20%. So when we are talking about these kinds of things, that's why we're having to talk about these trade-offs, that are difficult conversations to have. And unfortunately, what it comes down to is a fixed amount of money that we get in, so we have to say where our priorities, right? Is it worth us to have the best music program in the state and no soccer program, right? That could be a priority that we could certainly offer. It's not going to come without some definite consternation if we were to do something like that. But those are the kind of trade-offs we're talking about. So just in case anyone's out there didn't understand. Taylor.
Mr. Chair, I unfortunately sent an email to Travis. He apparently is out of town, as the auto response said, so I hope he's having fun somewhere, and I can give him a hard time about it later. But I had a question on this, and we kind of alluded to it at our last meeting, but it just kind of got my wheels turning because we're talking about trying to provide as much as we can to our students. And we know that according to Mr. Stoppenberg's information, we're only a couple of sports or activities away from competing at the level of like Kelly Walsh High School, which is very different numbers-wise enrollment. My thought was, you know, I wanted to know, and I assume you don't know this, and I'm not insulting you by saying this, but this is probably a Travis question, but do we, when is it that we vote on our rec board mill levy? And I say this, you know, hesitantly because I mean it's part of that, but I mean, we allocate that money as a rec board, or, you know, to the rec board that is then used to the rest of the community. And, you know, sometimes we hear often we hear we're not doing enough, and people forget that we have the pool and we facilitate that, which the city never kind of took over on. And we also have this rec board that we provide a lot of grants and money to, you know, our youth outside of the school days, in the summer programming. And maybe we want to say our priority wants to shift from that, and we want to look at maybe less allocation there, more into our general budget. So that's kind of something I know, that's a lot of information, and not something we're going to answer to now, but I think it's something as a board we should start to consider. And if you know when that voting is, I mean, before it comes, we should probably, I know you don't, but we should probably, you know, have to start thinking about that.
Well, I think it would be worth maybe the next board meeting, if you would, could you look up those statutes and figure out how much flexibility we do have relative to the rec board. I think there's, well, I don't want to get out on that yet, but I think we should probably understand that a little bit better.
And there actually are districts where the school board is the rec board. I just have another question, Mr. Chair, which is how feasible, and this is really for Lynn, how feasible is that idea of an elementary music teacher coming to assist at the middle school and the high school, because I'm assuming they're also busy.
Mr. Chair, Ms. Brew, yeah, they're all busy. One of our elementary school teachers has a little more flexibility in his schedule than the other. If we were able to arrange schedules and align those across between the elementaries and LMS, it is possible that he may have enough time to come up for a class period.
Just one.
Yeah, I think we could probably swing that, but again, maybe until some significant changes to schedules. And it's not really something we've discussed with the admin team yet, but it was posed as a possible strategy by some parents that I had on Friday.
Further discussions on this topic? Hey. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is kind of hard because I do both sports and I'm very involved in music. But the hardest thing about it is seeing our teachers, especially in our music music program being so spread thin and kind of lose the love that they have for the subject. And they love it so much, and why our music program is the way it is because they work so hard to accommodate our students. But as they work so hard, you start to see them kind of fizzle out, and they're so tired, and it's just, and it kind of transfers to us. We want to build them up because music is a community, and we know that. But it's so hard to be the community when like the person that's essentially leading you is kind of fading. And I think that's just the hardest part, is seeing those people who love music so much kind of lose it because they're tired and they can't maintain it anymore. But our teachers are great. Like, I wouldn't trade them for the world. We have great teachers. I just think that hopefully we can find a solution because they want to keep doing this. They want our program to be better. They want our kids to find love in music the way that they do. But it's hard for them to maintain that want because they're stretched. So, yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Anything else? Scott?
What are the other classes that are in the same category that they?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Jensen, I would consider at the middle school, those would be the exploratory classes, Spanish, family and consumer science, art, PE, computer science, those would probably qualify. And then at the high school level would be the electives, so agriculture, woodworking, art, foods, auto, yes, any of those.
So band and choir, those are the only electives of this type where the teacher is going between those?
Mr. Chair, no, we have one art teacher that's shared between Pathway High School and Lincoln Valley High School. Off the top of my head, I think there are any others that are shared. Principals, you may have.
Military science.
Military science, yes, that's another one that's shared between two high schools.
Courtney Woodhall, our teacher, she shared as well.
Yeah, at the elementary level, yes, there's an art teacher that goes back and forth between Van Peak and Baldwin Creek.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I have one more comment. I would really, hope that we could avoid limiting student enrollment and participation in any way in solving this, and I think we need to take Dagan's message very much to heart. I think, band and music and art and all of these electives and these specials really represent really critical opportunities for our students' brains, for our students to detach from technology, for our students to really learn lifelong skills and kind of explore some things that they may not have had a chance to explore at all in their family setting. So I hope we can really figure out a way to boost our support for music and figure out how we can maybe cut the pie a little differently to prevent the burnout that we're seeing, particularly amongst our band instructors.
Be interesting to see if we can make some changes to that happen.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I just wanted to also, I'm not sure how well known or widely known this is, but the district does offer extra duty stipends for the choir and the band director, because there is so much time that is necessary outside the regular school day, regular school year, with all the different things just for band alone. There's band camp, there's festivals, there's a jazz band, there's so many performances by the pep band, there's a lot of different requirements that are part of the job that don't take place between 7:30 and 3:30 in the afternoon. So there is compensation available for that. However, that is still, if you take that on, you're getting paid, but how much time away can you take from other responsibilities? And I think that's where we were with the current and outgoing band director.
Now, I had an email that said someone wanted to have public comment on this topic. Is there?
Just a couple of us. We'll be quick.
Okay, sounds good. I remember. I get a gold star.
Thank you. Thank you for your service, board members. It's a thankless job and volunteer job. On behalf of many district parents, we wanted Martina kind of a two-part, and then we have a student that wants to speak too. We wanted to highlight the importance of strengthening our school music programs. And a lot of this has already been touched on by the board and Mr. Harris. There's strong research showing that music education supports cognitive development, academic achievement, and social emotional well-being. Ensemble-based learning like band and choir offer some of the greatest benefits. In our rural district, the public school program is often the student's only access to formal music education. And music should be accessible to all students. That's why many parents and community members were alarmed to learn that sixth grade band may be capped next year. This would undermine the long-term health of the program since middle school ensembles directly feed into the high school. This is an equity issue. Students whose parents are not as tuned into school notifications are the ones that are most likely to end up missing out on music education to no fault of their own. Also, a student that gets interested in music this summer may not be able to start band because the cap is proposed to be first come, first served. This concern is especially urgent following Mr. Mullane's resignation, a loss that devastated many students because of the positive impact he had on them. He worked hard to rebuild the band program after 2 staff turnovers. Yet despite rebounding enrollment, he received no additional support, no duty adjustments, and no help for the beginning band students. My son's 6th grade band year had 60 students learning the wide range of instruments in beginning band. And I have a 3rd grader that wants to learn flute, and I really hope she can have a smaller student-to-teacher ratio. I know that Mr. Morton is concerned about the issue and trying to come up with an idea to relieve the burden on the incoming band teacher, given the budget constraints is sounds like hiring an additional band teacher isn't realistic. And Marty's gonna talk about that more. Strong music programs require early investment, and without a solid foundation, in 6th and 7th grade, our students fall behind their peers in other districts.
Hi, Martin Fusco. Not really gonna read this anymore because I'm thrilled with what you guys were all saying, and I completely agree. I'm a huge proponent for the music program. My son adored Mr. Mullane. Band, honestly got him through some hard days, all year long. So he was devastated to learn he was leaving. And this is, a sentiment we hear from a lot of students. And, things happen and people leave and he had his other reasons. But we just want to show support for him and have you understand that we fear this is going to keep happening, until something changes. And I get that we can't hire another teacher right now. And I'm not at all saying, let's band and eliminate soccer. That's just not going to happen. But what else can we do? And there's been discussions already, and I know that the district does care, and they want to make changes, but my concern is there's a lot of conversation but no action. What I want to have those discussions actually turn into something. What's an action item we can do? And there's been some great ideas. And when you mentioned the key metric team numbers, it just popped in my head, yes, I understand this district enrollment's going down, and that's a reality for everybody, and that sucks. But if you wanna look at numbers in the band program, those have actually gone up, significantly, and Mr. Mullane built that intentionally to, hopefully find more support in the district. So we went from 30 marching band students to 60, and they learned a ton. We went from 3 jazz band kids to 12. That's a pretty good sized jazz band for our district. And all the middle school bands were huge in comparison. And so those kids, so if you're talking numbers and an elective that's a choice, those kids are choosing music. So that speaks volumes right there. So what I'm asking you as a board, and what I know that the district is interested in, is I don't think anyone's saying we don't care about music, but can we make it more of a priority, knowing what we know, And then, like scheduling changes, shared instructional time. Did you know that our choir teacher has no, prep time at all, 100-day? The band teacher and the choir teacher are never in the same building at the same time. Like, these are just things, you know, the average person probably doesn't know, and I only know because I'm involved, right? So I understand it's not your job to come up with solutions, but maybe suggest like, hey, we have some feedback on what can we do, and then do it, not just keep talking about it. And I'm super happy to help build a Boost Music, like, group of parents. Like, that was my original intent, and it just kind of fell to the wayside. But with Garth leaving, it's like, all right, that's my kick in the pants. Can we get some parents involved? We have local, retired teachers. We have Fremont Symphony Orchestra members, people like me who have like minored in music. I'm willing to go in and help too, where we can, to build a program from the ground up and help those kids. But having an actual teacher, even if they're part-time, even if it's a part-time music aid, that would make a huge difference if we can't hire another teacher right now. So thank you for your support and your time, and then I want to have a little talk from
Hello, I'm Bryce Newman, and thank you, school board, for letting me speak. I joined band in 6th grade, and there was only Mr. Moline, and there were like 60 students playing in multiple diverse instruments. And I played trombone, and I still am. And I almost quit playing trombone because with so many different students and one single teacher, it was very difficult to get like group or individual instruction time. And especially since in 6th grade, it's like the foundation of learning and building off and like learning the fundamentals of music. And so, I struggled because every different note I played, no matter the position, had like the same sound to it. And my dad played trombone, and he helped like tutor me and help me like distinguish the notes and sounds. And so then each position had a different pitch. And so I continued playing, and I'm very thankful I did. But however, most students like don't have the opportunity, and like their parents may have not played an instrument. So they, like a lot of people, a lot of students struggle with learning, like when they're playing an instrument, and like learning the notes and being able to play properly. And so I stick with bands, and since I continued playing with the band, I've been able to participate in the Wyoming All-State Marching Band, where we were able to, me and multiple other band students in the high school were able to travel to New York City and Philadelphia to play in the Thanksgiving Day Parade in Philadelphia and see like the Statue of Liberty and a Broadway show and multiple different other cool scenes, like sights and cool things. And then also we're able to do marching band and pep band, which are amazing. Like the marching band, we put so much time after school, especially into learning learning how to not just play the songs, but how to like move around while playing them on the field and make it like a show. And then we also do that in state marching band. So like we go in multiple other schools who do marching band and like play and get judged based on how well we do our songs and how well we move around in unison. And Mr. Moline, a great music teacher, he spends extra time finding, like every once in a while, he finds small groups or like great musicians to come and play for us, and some of which go and play in the Fremont County Orchestra or as a like quartet or something in the auditorium, high school auditorium. And then to prep for the school marching band, there's like a summer camp the week before school starts or something like that, and we practice and like build off to get ready for state marching. And then festival, which is like, because from 6th grade to now, every half a year, especially in middle school, we practice and then get better. So we were able to play in a concert, and probably most of you have been to one of the concerts in the high school auditorium. Like, and it gets from like sorta good in 6th grade to like a lot better as we learn how to play better. And numerous concerts in the LVHS auditorium, especially for a festival, like in high school, in middle schools, we did this, where the songs that we play in the high school auditorium, we also play in festival, which is in Casper, and multiple other bands do it as well. It's a unique learning opportunity where you can listen to other bands play, and also our bands play, and like get judged so we can improve for when we do it in the auditorium. But yeah, that's what.
Great, thank you. Okay, we move on to the climate survey topic. For the board meeting precedent 415, we want to discuss climate survey recommendations from district administration.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a little bit of background on this. So at the April meeting, again, got a directive to confer with the admin team, to kind of see what they were thinking about in terms of climate surveys, just to measure perceptions of leadership and support in 311 and how that's affecting the feel of our staff and our buildings. So what we have here is a climate survey draft in that PDF, basically looking at 3 different levels of leadership, if you want to think of it that way: the building leadership, district office leadership, and then the school board. One thing that the admin team was wanting to emphasize is that the leading education research these days is really not in favor of anonymous climate surveys. In fact, there's one thought leader, Jimmy Costas, who we did a book study on building rethinking culture at the end of this book. He says that anonymous surveys are often a symptom of poor culture, as they unintentionally promote distrust. So if we're anonymously asking people what they think, we need to work on a trust issue. Definitely right off the get-go, we already know that that's an issue. If we can't share information or dissenting or different opinions in an open way. Another aspect of the survey that the board we'd like the board to continue or to consider as the admin team would be the timing. Right now is really not ideal, as we got staff and students and parents and everyone involved kind of thinking about what comes next after the school year. It's a hectic time of year with graduation and state culminating events and things like that. So if possible, if the next time we run a survey, we'd like to think about a timing that's more like late September, early October, to get a better gauge, and also include the new staff members and not the outgoing staff members. And then finally, the one thing that the board, that the admin team wanted to emphasize was just the actionable aspect of the results. There needs to be some sort of true actionable items that come from the survey, and then to make it meaningful and to make it worthwhile. So those were kind of the guiding points that the admin team wanted me to convey. And then if there's any questions about the draft or any of those aspects or other suggestions or items for us, I'd be happy to take that input.
Scott?
Sure. So on the anonymous, so how would you measure distrust? So if we did do an anonymous survey, how would we gather information from folks who didn't come forward?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Jensen, I think one key measure would be just the response rate. If we're requiring people to identify themselves to share a comment, and the response rate is really, really dismal, that shows you right there that not enough people feel safe or feel comfortable or care enough to submit a response. So that would be one measure. And then I think, if there are certain people, a lot of our buildings, the staff, obviously, they know their principal and the principal knows the staff. It might be a case where a principal could then find out who the non-respondents are and then go talk to them, in more of a proactive way. You didn't respond, I didn't get your feedback, can we have a conversation? And I don't know if that's feasible, depending on how many non-respondents we might get. But I think those approaches would probably be ways to try to get at some of that mistrust potentially.
I'd be concerned that if there were members of staff that weren't trustful of their leadership, they might just provide untruthful answers. Right? So they may just respond and then just respond in the way they think that people want them to respond. I'm not going to feel comfortable with this. There
I guess I definitely agree with Scott on that, and I have some concerns, I have a lot of concerns. I appreciate you taking the direction that the board gave and drafting this survey. I personally feel like it's just pretty fluffy, and it doesn't really have a lot of content that I feel like our teachers, and our staff are yearning for, and I don't think it's really gonna get to the heart of a lot of the issues. I agree that there probably is some trust issues, and, you know, how do you repair those without knowing where the issues lie? I mean, I think at some point you have to start with that anonymous survey. Hope you get some feedback that can maybe then lead to, you know, further interviewing or investigation or follow-up. But I just, you know, we've done these surveys in the past, and I just think unless we're really getting to the heart of some of the things that have been brought up about, you know, safety, feeling like you can, you know, pressure about job performance, testing performance, just anything like that we sometimes hear, and it's like, well, until we've got the actual data to support that these are how some of our staff feel, I just don't think this particular survey would even be worth sending out. And maybe I'm wrong, and I'd love to hear the board's opinion. And I know we are doing exit surveys, so I think that's great, but doing a survey at the beginning of the year for new staff, that's irrelevant, because that's not gonna have a good gauge of the climate or the culture either. So either we do it to staff that have been here, and it needs to happen at the end of the year or over the summer, I don't know, but I just think, having a new teacher that has no experience in the culture is really not gonna be able to answer a climate survey.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Superintendent, I want to echo everything Mr. Jensen and Mr. Jacobs said. I agree completely. And also was a little confused about the start of the survey that suggests that responses are confidential, but you also listed name, and I think a part of building that trust is communicating with staff. What does confidential mean? Who reads this? Does just one person read it? What is going to be done with the responses? I think that's a key part of building trust. I absolutely agree, Superintendent Harris, that when people put their name on feedback, I think it is a lot more meaningful when people own that. And I would encourage everyone in our district to give feedback with their name. I think it's really important to own your feedback, and that is the first step in having a conversation. But I also think it's crucial to have the option for anonymous feedback, because if that option doesn't exist, we may miss the people we most need to hear from. And I think follow up from one supervisor if you don't fill out a form is pretty intimidating. And I know if my supervisor at work came and said, "You didn't give me feedback," I'd be pretty intimidated. You probably won't share anything. So those are kind of my thoughts on anonymity. In terms of the time element of it, this is a little bit echoing off of what Mrs. Jacobs said, but good feedback is timely and specific, and the best way to give feedback is to get it close to the date when it occurs. I think if you wait all summer, or staff wait all summer, they may not remember specific examples and those elements of giving feedback that are really helpful. Or they may dwell and things may become bigger than they actually were. And so I think giving feedback close to the teaching year is really important. It could capture people who something may happen in the summer and they may leave. I think that's really key. And I also think when we consider feedback, the time to process results and to decide what to do with those results is not a quick process. And I think if feedback is received at the end of the school year, that gives administrators a lot of time to think about how they're going to implement that feedback and grow. I know when I receive critical feedback, sometimes I need some distance from it before I can think about how to implement it. And so I think that's a gift to us as the board, to our administrators, if we actually give them time from when they receive the feedback to when they might need to implement it. Hopefully they're also receiving a lot of wonderful feedback about things they do well, because I know there's a lot of things they do well. And then, what some other pieces I just have on here, I think there's this real concern people will have of retaliation, and whether or not that is real, I think that is a fear that impacts people's willingness to give feedback, and signing their name on it or feeling forced to sign a name. or not knowing where the survey data can go, I think can be real sources of fear for retaliation. And so I would say however the survey goes out, also communicating really clearly how the data is gonna be reviewed and providing reassurance to staff, and I say staff more broadly, I think this just includes teachers, but I think it would be great to include all staff in feedback. It's a really important piece. So, thank you though, Superintendent Harris. I think this is a huge, good step. I'm really excited to hear what we learned from this, and I know we have buildings full of wonderful people who probably have really thoughtful comments to give about both our strengths and our areas for growth.
I think on timing, I think it'd be appropriate maybe to do a survey twice a year, so maybe like October, April, possibly. Capture both ends of the spectrum. Sooner than June.
I guess one of my questions right now is the intent or the thought to try to get this done within the next 2 weeks? I mean, that's kind of a tall order. I don't think, I mean, with all this, I'm not sure that the survey's in the shape it needs to be in to send it out right now. So we need to address the technical aspects of the survey, determine whether or not we want it to be anonymous, and then try to get it sent out in the next 2 weeks. Now, I've had staff write me and say, I really think it's important to do one right now, this year, before we leave. And I don't disagree with them, and I echo I agree with what you guys said, particularly on the timing side. I do question whether or not, with everything that's going on right now, if pragmatically, we can just get it done.
One solution might be, Mr. Chair, is to maybe send out a notification to staff stating that we're in the process of building this climate survey, things have gotten a little delayed, and just a warning that, not a warning, but a notification that they'll be coming, as soon as possible, and even if that means, teachers check their email year round. They might not wanna respond unless they're Mr. Rapali do not check their email or their phone or anything like that, but, I think that a lot of our teachers do check emails, more rarely in the summer, but I think that if they know that something is gonna be coming out, and knowing that they can still complete that survey, over the summer, we put some sort of deadline to have that feedback like Mara suggested, where we can process the information and maybe utilize it moving forward. But you're right, we're in a time crunch, but I think we could at least try. We might not get a great response rate.
From a historical perspective, I can just tell you where we were with surveys until today, with climate surveys. When I first got on the board, there was a lot of discussion about how we didn't get very good feedback, or we didn't get the numbers of people that would send us surveys back were very low. And the feedback that we did get was, I'm worried that I will be retaliated against. I don't think that this is anonymous. Okay, so at that point, Brett, who was the chair at the time, said, look, I'm going to send the survey out. The administration won't see it, and to his credit, didn't, in fact, the board didn't see the full survey, I think, but I can't just aggregate everything. And we saw the numbers go up with Brett down here. And then we said, look, we want to make this fully transparent, that we're going to be anonymous. So then we actually sent it off to WSBA, and they handled the whole thing. So we didn't see any of the survey results until it came back in an aggregated. Maybe some of it was aggravated, but certainly in an aggregated form. I think that when we did that, there may have been some loss in the fidelity of the data that came back to us, which is understandable. But I do think that it certainly did preserve that anonymity, and we saw numbers go up. So I see both sides of the coin. I certainly see where the author's coming from, and I think if everyone was confident that they wouldn't be retaliated against, non-anonymous feedback is more powerful, right? You can follow up. You can go talk to someone and say, hey, what do you feel like? What's going on? But if we do think that there is a climate of distrust, then we're not gonna get valuable data in it's non-anonymous. So I have a hunch that we'd be better off with an anonymous survey, even though I do understand that.
Mr. Chair, did WSBA charge when they
Yes.
posted data for us?
Yeah, it wasn't that much. It wasn't that expensive, but.
And Mr. Chair, if I remember correctly, it was kind of geared more towards like our, I mean, it did break it down into building level but it was kind of more a district as a whole and before. If I remember that right.
Yeah, and the problem with their survey is the questions. We left it up to them to design the survey, and I don't think it matched our district very well.
In terms of the actionable part, I don't feel like we don't a lot out of that data.
Yeah, my hope would be that we craft something, that then we can look at over time and compare from year over year or semester over semester to see how we're doing as we make changes or improvements, hopefully we see that. So it's fairly important, I think, that we craft something that's going to be robust enough that, it will still meet our needs 2 years from now or 3 years from now. But it also can't be so large, it comes from everything else built out, so it needs to be short enough, that people will do it. I think anonymous, maybe that would be a good way to go, if we tell them, maybe we tell them others.
Where do we need to go with this, you guys?
Mr. Chair, Superintendent Harris, would you be opposed to us maybe each sending a couple suggestions of questions, maybe? Would you do something, we've done something similar to that in the past, where each of us sent in a couple questions, if we had any to add to the survey? Or I could definitely provide some, I don't know, maybe you don't, maybe you don't have any.
I've got things to say, I just wait.
What? Here.
Maybe I need a little bit of help, but I've never seen anything happen with a climate survey that has long-term, long-lasting effects on our district. And if I'm wrong, someone please inform me when and how well it worked and what we did differently at that time. That's what I thought, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, that is only as good as what we can do with it, and if we continue to, you know, it hasn't helped that kind of changing school board, and then also she's changed, you know, everything. So yeah, I guess it's a very valid point that by the time it seems like we get that information back to us and aggregated and, you know, reported on, things are kind of, whatever the concern was or stress was, it's kind of fizzled out, but I feel like we have to make some sort of attempt, but I see where you're coming from.
Mr. Chairman, I guess one of the things I believe is that we wanna have an impact on our schools and in our different buildings and everything else, and we do our job as board members, we have to have an active role in those schools and be, if you're a liaison, be in the building, talk to people, talk to the administrators, talk to the janitors, you know, see what the feel of the building is. You can tell organizationally if you're in a building that is upbeat and enjoying what they're doing, and you can real easily tell if you walk into a building that is full of people that are not happy where they're at. It's a 5-minute job to check that out. It doesn't take you out very long. But I do think that part of the role of a school board member is to be in the schools, to go in and say hello, visit, see what we can do to help out. I think it's part of the community. We welcome our community to come into our schools. We have nothing to hide. People come in and visit schools all the time. That's a good thing. And like I said, I mean, I hate to sound like a total downer, but I've just never seen a survey, climate survey, amount to a hill of anything. So I'm sorry, that's my opinion.
No, I think those are good points, and I think the next question then is how do we solicit the information that we need to hear? If we have this thought about mistrust and worries about retaliation, it's like, how do we capture those opinions and those ideas and that feedback? What's the other mechanism? Because
They need
if
to
it's
talk.
not, it's not always that simple, though I agree. For some of us it is, but can there be a forum where a small group of teachers sits down with someone who's not affiliated with their direct leadership? Or is there some option for face-to-face communications in small groups where a group of teachers or staff members can feel comfortable enough and safe enough to share their concerns?
So either Smire is practicing sign language, which very well may be the case.
And I'm not very good at it.
But if not, I think she wants to say something. So
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, Board. My brother's certified in sign, I make up my own, but, so I wanna start off thanking you for thinking about this and contemplating it. I look at survey data all the time. I agree with you, Mr. McConnell, on some of this. I do wanna start out with, because this is a board that I've trusted, and it's people that I can talk to openly. I talk in my office with people, I talk on the phone with people. All of you on this board, I've worked with this admin team for a long, long time. I've worked with the majority of this staff for a long time, and I've worked with all the staff as a curriculum director. And yes, there are people that maybe fear retaliation. I've heard that from other people from the community. I would like to remind people, we have policies against retaliation. I am that person, 6, 7, and 9, Title 6, 7, and 9. We have that, I advertise it everywhere. So if people are truly afraid of retaliation, they do have somewhere to go. And I hope people really realize, and I hope publicly, I don't like to be quoted or paraphrased, right, in public, but I will for this. We allow for safety for our staff. And when I keep hearing that we're worried about transparency, but all I hear is when I get an email or when people are worried about this, do these guys know that they're worried? Where's our chain of communication? That's where the trust is, and I'm really concerned about this. As a leader in this district, and I don't get passionate like I want to cry, but I feel like it right now, because I feel like it's broken. And if we're sitting here trying to figure out how to fix whatever might be out there that's not working by a survey, we're missing the mark. We may want to do some surveys, and I get it. Once in a while, let's throw a question out, let's ask for some temperature checks. But in reality, if we're getting emails, or you're getting emails of a concern, you have a direct line to these guys, either directly to them or through him to them. When people call me because I get concerns, the first thing I say is, did you contact that person? Well, no. Why did you not? Well, this is my concern. Okay, I will get back to you. I don't come to you guys, I don't come to the board, I go to the person. So I'm really concerned, and I hope you guys know it's not out of disrespect. It's out of what I see every day, because it is, I sat with a team of music teachers. I sat with many people over the last couple months for hours. And it always comes down to, let's learn how to communicate with each other. Let's quit jumping over the chain of communication and not trusting each other, because this is what's breaking down our system. And I'm sorry, but there are so many ways to get in there and understand what's happening in this school. And if somebody is worried about retaliation, send them to me. I will help them, I will protect them, and I will work with them and our team here. Because I don't know of anybody that wakes up in the morning and says, I want to hurt somebody today. I'm gonna go in there with a classroom of kids, and my gosh, I'm gonna hurt one of them because I feel like it. There's nobody in this district that does that. And there's not a single leader in this district that wants to harm a staff member. We all want what's best for kids, just like you guys do. So I'm really, really fearful that we are not using our chain of communication. We all know it. We have copies of it. We have policies that protect people. I'm begging you to help us grow people in a world of social media where people don't talk anymore, they don't sit anymore, they don't reach out to anybody anymore. Please help us. And I did not ask any of these, so I'm sorry if I'm speaking for you, but I'm speaking for myself because it's crushing. It's crushing. Because we are spending more time talking about this without fixing it, and I agree, than we are on our focus for our children. And so we have ways to support and care for our staff, let them know what those avenues are. I will be better at advertising the other part of my job and do that. So I don't know what I'm saying, I just am so afraid that we're destroying it. That's all I have to say, thank you.
Thanks for those comments, Deidre. I do think that maybe misunderstanding or at least making an assumption that's not correct. And one of those assumptions is that the board doesn't direct those folks through the chain of command. You may not hear about it all the time.
Correct.
And they may not follow our advice, but I know that the board very often does direct them to do so.
Okay, I apologize. I don't know, I don't have those facts, you're correct.
So I think what my hope is with a climate survey, because I do want to do one, and I think it's because I'm hopeful that we can maybe identify things on the fringes that will make our district better. And it's a fairly simple way to allow folks in a very quick and easy and non-confrontational way to make their opinions known. It gives us real data points that we can look at over time, rather than just anecdotes. So it's not necessarily helpful to hear from one member of staff that complains, and they just might be a complainer. I don't know.
There are a few.
Yeah, and there are people that are complainers, and that certainly isn't helpful, because we don't want to make changes based on a complainer. We want to make changes based, if any change needs to be made on the whole system. That's the point of a climate survey. It's not that there's some massive problem that we have to uncover. It's that there are things, I'm sure there are things that we could change in our district on the edges that are going to move us forward. That'll make us more competitive, that would make us an even better place to work, that might make it so that, we lose staff that we would rather keep. And if there's things that we can do that would allow us to keep those members, those staff members employed here, rather than lose them to somewhere else, then we want to keep them. So if there's reasonable things we can do, and if we can find out what those are, then we can do them. And we might not know, and it doesn't help us to learn in an exit survey that, we could have made that change, like, they need to lose that person. And so I want us to have a way to capture that data. Yeah, and you're right, Mike, we should be talking to folks, and some people do talk, but others aren't going to. And it's those others that we need to know their opinions too, and a climate survey can do that. And it could be useless, and we might not take action on it, but if we craft it right, and we're willing to listen to people's feedback, we could act.
Mr. Chair,
Okay.
just to feed off what Scott said, an example of that, of waiting until the exit survey is an elementary school teacher that wanted to job share at one point, and that wasn't a policy that we were offering or providing at the time, and so she resigned, and it wasn't until her exit interview or when she left that we found out that's why she was leaving, is she wanted a job share, and then like 2 months later, we immediately passed a policy that allowed for that to we just didn't know that was something that was going on. I know she had conveyed it to her admin at the time, and I think they thought that it wasn't, something the board was in support of, and it was something that 2 months later they got tasking. So I think that's a good example of that, where that could have maybe been preventative. She was a great teacher, still is a great teacher, but at the time, there, just circumstances in her life, she wanted to work part-time, and we weren't providing that. So, just one example.
So, I do not want to be the chair of the meeting that goes past 10 o'clock. So, we need to put a lid on this topic. Where do we want to go with this, you guys? I'm not clear, I'm sure Mike's not clear where to go at this point.
So I guess my recommendation would be, maybe if you could explore an option with WSBA, see if there's something we can do with them. What kind of cost and how customizable that might be, see if that's an option for us. This could continue to be a discussion item next time. I don't think we have to do anything until next week.
So we're not, what that tells me is we know that we're not doing one this year.
I would emphasize that any feedback, however imperfect, is pretty important. And feedback is like we give our students in schools feedback every single day. That's what assessment is. That's what an education is. And so to be the top administrators of a district that is focused on education and to be straying away from the most simple, like Google survey is the most simple, basic form of feedback out there. And people will do it or they won't do it, and we'll get, the advice will be helpful, the advice will be useless. Like, we will only learn more about how to request feedback from our staff by doing it, and even the most basic Google survey is a pretty minimal cost and a pretty minimal time investment, and is a standard practice in almost every school and educational system to seek out annual feedback. I think I am shocked that there's so much discomfort around this idea of requesting feedback when every single day all of our educators give feedback for students multiple times a day, because that's how you learn. So I think we should, I don't think this topic needs to be as scary as it is. Like, a lot of feedback is really good, and I hear, for all the complaints I hear in our district about anyone, I hear 20 positive things for each complaint, and I want you all to hear that too. Because I'm not going to tell you every little positive thing I hear. So I think there's this climate of fear around feedback, because we don't do it, and the only way to make that climate of fear go away for our staff and for our leaders is to just do it. And it may take 3 surveys before staff are like, oh, I can actually be honest and I won't be retaliated against. It may take 3 surveys before, as an administrator, you're not like terrified of what you're gonna hear, and the only way to normalize that is to practice it. And so I don't know that we have much to gain by striving for a perfect survey. They're not very hard to do, and our teachers do them every day with their students.
Mr. Chair, I do agree, Mara. I wasn't speaking about not getting feedback. I said a survey is fine, but let's don't put everything in one basket. Let's open communication up, because a survey isn't all the data you're going to get. That's what I'm saying. Like, I read and send out surveys. These guys are sitting tired of my surveys, because I send out surveys all the time. So I'm not, when I spoke, I wasn't speaking for all of them, and we are anti-it, but we also need to know the intention too. Are there specific things we need to be pulling from these guys to hear, because we don't always hear it. You guys hear probably different things than we do. So when we were crafting that survey as an example, we were going off of what they do ask their staff. Sometimes they do surveys off and on, but we weren't sure of the intention either. I'm just being clear on that. We're like, well, what exactly are you guys needing from us to ask? Is it questions also about the board? We didn't even know. So we just crafted a very simple survey.
I think it's great.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Jared, I know, we're gonna get us out. So some of the things that, I guess I was thinking and it wasn't communicated, and these are things that were communicated to us from teachers, is that in some ways it's gonna be hard, because I think some teachers want it broken down into secondary and elementary, but, how useful do you think that your PLC times are? How useful do you think your planning periods are? Do you think that you're using those to the most effective way? Is there other strategies or suggestions? So to me, it's more on the instructional piece. It's more on, do you feel, maybe some on the supervision piece. Do you feel supported and safe with your peers? I think there's a multitude of questions, and so you're right. I mean, that was super vague for us to just say, let's do a staff.
Yeah, let's do a climate survey.
So I'd be happy, I don't know if we wanna make a little committee for this. I also agree with Mara, we are overcomplicating this. We aren't gonna find a perfect survey, but I also agree with Scott that it has to be, we can't get longitudinal data if every year or every 6 months we change our survey, because then everything is just changing too. So, but I do think we just, we're constantly hearing on exit interviews, or not exit interviews, but when people are on the way out that or they come to us and we say, talk to your administrators, so it's just one of those things that we need to figure out some communication better.
I'm gonna filibuster for 19 minutes now.
See you, Gar. All right, so that leaves me
I
still
will
with a big
send
question.
Mike
What do we wanna do?
and add in some suggestions.
I like the committee idea.
Mr. Monroe?
Go ahead. Mr. Chair, members of the board, and Taylor, you spoke, and I think that's great, and that gives us very specific information that we need it not to be anonymous about. If we're talking about PLC time and planning time, it's gonna be different for my math department than my CTE department and my art department. So when I get 5 vague answers, I just go, complainers, right? Because I don't know where the information's coming from. So if we're gonna be specific about that, then I need to have specific to what the problem is. And if they start to add, when we're planning with our math department, now they leave their anonymous piece, but I can't do anything if it's all grouped together because there's specific pieces with that makes it super complicated. And I think that for us is where the issue is. I also just want to remind the board that we're at a season of time where these guys, and myself included, have met with or are meeting with every single employee. Like, every single employee has 20 to 30 to 60 to usually limitless time to let us know how they feel about what's going on. And the question always is what else can we help you with? What's going well? What's not going well? All of those things. And so it gets to Mr. McConnell's point where, like, I'm sorry, but if you can't be professional and have a conversation with your boss, I'm not sure that I can value it enough on a survey to actually take actionable items and data and move this district forward. And so that gets super complicated because I don't think you guys understand that. We meet with every single employee before this year is over, and we file every one of those pieces of paper with Carol saying that that meeting's happened and these are the discussions we're having. But it's not just all included in the written notes. There's large conversations that are happening about what's going on. And I can give you 4 examples today because I met with 4 different employees today as I'm trying to close out this work. And these guys are all doing that same exact work. So I think the idea that we're not being able to share feedback is also not really accurate, if I'm speaking from an employee perspective. And I think to reiterate with what Deidre's saying, if they don't feel comfortable talking to me, then they should feel comfortable coming over to central office and talking to my boss. And I've had that happen. And so I know there are people that have done that. And those are always good conversations, because we can actually do something because we have some specificity in the conversation to now where we can take change. But the rest of this gets a little difficult if we're gonna go here. And I think, I also would like, and I'm gonna talk to Mike about this, like, I would like to show you all the surveys we have done. Because there was a time when Dr. Barker was here that we did these, I can't even remember what they were called, Survey 360s. We got that data on a regular basis, and they were anonymous as well. Like, we could throw slideshows of data after data after data from survey points, and it goes back to Mike's thing. Like, what can we actually do with it? Yes, and there's nuggets. We always grab nuggets. It's like going to PD. You grab these good parts, you grab these good parts. But I don't know that it changes the world, right? And the conversations that happen at the surface level in May do change school, they do change education, and they do change results for kids. And that's what I'd like to really try to stay focused on. I'm open and free to get what other data we need, but I think we really need to stay focused on the core data, which is the actionable data that we can actually do something differently with. Not we're looking for some kind of problem or to validate if this one person that wrote us is actually with a group of 5 other people who believe the same thing that they do. And that's what it felt like when the conversation started, is we hear from people, we hear from people, we hear from people, and we need to see if these things are true. And I think if you guys were to rewatch the conversation that started this topic, like, you could see where we kind of get where it feels like we're looking for problems, not looking to how to improve the district. Thank you.
On.
Oh, you're gonna hear my voice trembling because I'm nervous to even bring this topic up, but thank you, Mr. Chair. As I'm listening to everything that's going on tonight, I think one of the foundational pieces of climate that we really need to focus on is trust. And so Trust is built in hard conversations, and we can go over the research on how trust is built over time, but it's rarely built in anonymous surveys. And so I understand the need for feedback, and in fact, I truly appreciate feedback. But what has helped me the most are the people who come to me and say, these are the things I'm seeing great in your leadership and what we're doing in our school, and this is something that's not working as well, and so can we talk about that together? And that's really what changes the climate in a school. And so however we approach this, whether that's through feedback of a survey, I'd like us all to really be thinking about what that climate survey is really going after. And what it's really going after is, do we have trust built in our schools to be able to have the feedback, to receive feedback, to give feedback. It's happening all the time, but it doesn't happen if it's being given or received in a posture, well, that's not the right word, in a climate where the trust isn't built. And so I'd ask that we look at our leadership at every level, board, central, building level, and then also within our teams to really think about what we're doing, our actions with surveys, what we're doing to promote trust. And thank you for listening. Woo! You got me flustered.
Okay, let's just send out the current survey we have. Just stay broad, and then those are really good points. But we can fix it, I don't know. You guys got it.
Let's give it a Alright.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Tabling.
Till next month, or till never, or till?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I have directed to get a quote from WSBA targeting a survey to take place sometime next school year.
Thank you.
Alright, we have salary and comp targets and new policies driven by state statute. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but neither of these they're certainly not action items, and I don't think they have to happen tonight.
I'm just kidding. Mr. Chair, members of the board, high intensity, high endurance audience members. The only thing that I would think is sort of important, if we're going to cut this short, would be the new policies driven by state statute. There will be some policy implications in one rule proposal that's coming on the issue of repealing the gun-free zones. A couple of these, just the Enrolled Act 23, there's just an awareness piece there, and then the Enrolled Act 53, there will be a policy forthcoming for first reading, most likely in June on that, because we have something in place by the start of the upcoming school year. So I know we don't have much time left if we're hoping to be out by 10, but those are some things that are coming that the board members need to be aware of.
So if we were to, Scott, you kind of brought up the salary and comp targets. Are we okay with that with the next meeting?
Yeah, we can. It'd be better if Travis was here as well for that. He's gonna need to explain what the data is for.
Alright. So let's table D till next meeting. E, did we wanna discuss, so we could just discuss the gun-free zones one this evening and then discuss the other two next meeting. Does that sound okay?
Mr. Chair, that would be great, because I do need some direction from the board on the rule promulgation.
Yep, we do have, public comment on the gun-free zones as well. So, let's go ahead and get that discussion, Mike. Kick us off on that one.
You bet. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will attempt to be as brief as possible, but this is a complicated, emotional topic, so.
There goes our 10 o'clock.
No, I've got the clock right up on my screen here, so. As we know, Enrolled Act 24 was passed, this year in the legislative session down in Cheyenne. That changes what we have in terms of our concealed carry permit, or concealed carry policy for staff. There's some provisions we can keep, and there's some provisions that are gonna have to go away based on that new Enrolled Act. What we can keep, based on what I've gathered from WSBA and attorney input, of course, staff that wanna carry concealed need to have that permit issued by the state. They need to have training. In the draft policy from WSBA, they need to have at least 16 hours of live fire handgun training, 8 hours of scenario-based training, and then 12 hours every 6 months of ongoing training is split between live fire and scenario-based. Instructor qualifications we can keep. Prohibition on open carry, of course, we can keep that. So that's what we have in place that we can keep. What we can't keep would be the application process. Right now, we have the ability to screen applicants to go through their supervisor, their superintendent, and the board for approval. We have specific firearm and holster requirements. We have enhanced background checks, psychological testing, drug and alcohol testing, and then all candidates have to reach a qualifying score on the Wyoming Law Enforcement Academy pistol course. All of that we cannot keep based on the statute that is now in place, or it will be in place on July 1st. The following points are unclear if we can require, but I'd like to advocate that this board consider requiring them. Of course, we know that you have to have a concealed carry permit. I would like our policy or rule to require that we require proof that you have that concealed carry permit from those seeking to carry. And the other piece I'd like to require, if possible, would be to require proof of completing the training before you carry. There's some question about whether that's gonna be allowable. That's likely to be challenged in court, but I think it's reasonable if the policy says you have to have a concealed carry permit and you have to have training, that the candidate furnish that proof of those two things before they're allowed to or before they begin carrying. Like, they're not gonna be allowed or permitted. They can, but I think it's reasonable that the district would have proof that those things are in place.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Mr. Harris, I thought our last meeting you had indicated that we could still keep those things, but it didn't necessarily mean they were enforceable. Like, or we can still suggest the training and that stuff, but it's just not, is that correct?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Jacobs, yes, I believe that is the case, that there's a lot of things that we can ask for, but we may not be able to require anything else. That's a topic of discussion among school boards all around the state and superintendents. If you have a requirement in your policy about training, but you can't ever ask about it, that doesn't seem like much of a requirement. And then the flip side, people are like, well, you can't ask about it, because then you're creating, you're abridging, the right to carry as intended by the statute, so it's gonna play out, I just don't know, will be the test case.
That'd be my question, are we allowed to compel members of staff to disclose to us that they intend to carry?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Jensen, I don't believe we can require that they intend to carry, they don't have to notify us of that. But we may be able to require that they tell us they've got a concealed carry permit and they've completed the training required in the policy. But that's again, right for a challenge.
Wait, I guess maybe that confused me.
We can sidestep, we're requiring that by instead revising the wording.
So we can require them to tell us if they have a concealed carry permit and they've done training, but not if they intend to carry.
I think I'm tracking it, it's getting close to 10 o'clock. I believe, my current understanding is, you can't require it, that they have it, and you can't necessarily, put stipulations in place around them furnishing that, but you could, I hope, request proof that they have it.
Here's what I would like us to do, maybe, instead. So right now, we provide training for folks that participate in our current policy. I'd like to see us continue to do that. So if somebody wants to voluntarily, so if they want to carry, and the state's going to allow them with a concealed carry permit, we can still say, if you'd like, we will pay for your ongoing training, and just same as we would right now.
Cause I'm they're getting trained.
Yeah, so we would offer to pay for it, and that would encourage people to do it.
Can we give them a free psyche about it?
I think the people who would take that one aren't the ones you wanna take.
One of the lingering concerns I have in the back of my mind is that the public, is not going to be holding to our policies, and so in effect, we're gonna be telling our staff we trust you less than we trust, Mr. Joe Public from off the street. I'm not sure we should do that, but I think we should offer the training, offer the lockbox that we do now. So all the benefits that we currently provide for those who want to participate, I think we should continue to to sidestep it, so that, if you can't require them to disclose to us, I'm not sure how we can require them to tell us they will train.
I'm admittedly a bit confused and fuzzy on that point, because it all sounds like everyone across the state is.
Mr. Chair, if I could, the one thing about providing training and district expenses, that's just a variable, we can't anticipate what the cost would be. The training for live fire training, the cost for live fire training plus scenario-based training and travel to conduct that training in a location that's more private, so people's identities aren't out there. It could pile up pretty quickly if we have an open door to whomever wants to participate. That's just a concern that I don't know how to account for.
Maybe we'd have to cap it, until we can change it.
So this is, going in effect July 1st, July 1. So we don't have one more meeting.
Mr. Chair, Mrs. Jacobs, so that's a little complicated with this particular issue. It's a rule rather than a policy. So I was hoping at this meeting we'd have a little clarity on exactly what the board would like to see in terms of the rule. We would issue public notice, and then there's a 45-day public comment period. And at the end of the 45 days, the board would vote to approve the rule or not. There's typically a hearing in that 45-day window where, the rule has been released to the public. Members of the public can come and make comment on the rule. If there are any final adjustments to the rule, the board would consider those at its vote and then either vote to approve or not. So it's different than a policy. There's no two readings. It's one vote after 45 days.
Which means in order to hit that July deadline, we have to have something tonight.
Mr. Chair, that is something that has been accounted for. We're not gonna hit July 1st. I don't think unless you guys wanna have a meeting like on July 1st. But that's the vote that most districts are in. We're a little late with we got the draft policy from WSBA, but they've amended it. Our attorney's opinion has changed. I believe we'll be okay as long as we get something in place before the school year starts. And I could be remiss on that, but that's the level of urgency I'm getting from our school district attorney.
Do you wanna address?
Yeah. Somebody's sunglasses
Oh,
are
those
over
are
here.
mine, I've moved so many times.
Okay. Sorry, I know, it's getting late and we're all tired. I appreciate your time. I think, I don't know if that's, I can't tell if it's on or off because it doesn't actually sound
There
like
you
it's
go.
on there. Okay. Sarah Riley. I know that I spoke a lot of times against CKA policy when it came about, but I actually want to stand here on the other side of that today and say that I met with a representative from the Wyoming Education Association last week and talked about the law and the policy that we have in place already. And their understanding was that the only difference was that you can't require how the weapon is stored, but there is a very specific provision in the new law that gives districts a pretty wide scope of ability to create a concealed carry policy. And so I think that it would actually be in our district's best interest to keep the policy as close to what currently exists as possible. I do understand Mr. Jensen's concerned about we have no control over what the public can do and how trained they are when they come into the building. But we have staff who are with our kids 8 hours a day, 180 days a year, and the intent behind what policy CKA was to have staff that were trained to protect our children. And I think the more training they have, the better protected our children are going to be, especially when we have just anybody off the street who can now come in with a weapon. I think that increases the threat inside our school buildings, that people are now allowed to carry. I know rules don't stop criminals, I understand that. But I just want to encourage you to really consider that having a highly trained staff is the best way to protect our kids. And I think we can share that with staff as we understand that anybody can come in. We can't require anything of them, but we are trusting you with our kids. Therefore, we are hoping that you are going to be as well trained as possible. And I will say that Toronto County District 1 just passed a policy last week or the week before, covering the same thing, so that might be worth looking at their policy as well. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
I'll just make one final point on this, and
this could be totally inaccurate, so I apologize because I'm speaking on the record, but I was, in a state board of education meeting with another colleague on the state board, and she also serves in her local school district in Basin. And she had said that their district had met with an attorney and said they're in a rough position because they didn't previously have a policy in place. But she said they referred to Lander and they referred to Cody and a couple other districts that had policies previously implemented, and because of that, there were different provisions. I don't know if that's accurate, I don't know if that's worth following up, but I did want to point that out because I would like us to stay similar to our policy if we can, if possible.
Mr. Chair, Mrs. Jacobs, that attorney's opinion is one that is around the state in different places. That is not our school district's opinion. He feels differently, and he's naturally a little more conservative, and risk averse as an attorney. But he's advising me that there are these components of our policy that need to go. I would prefer to keep them all in place if we could, but I'm not sure if that's going to be necessary.
I don't want us to be the test case for a lawsuit. Let's let Casper do it.
Right. I was just reading the statute. I would probably concur more with what Mr. Whitaker is telling us. So, at this point, I guess what we need to decide is whether or not we want to, well, let's take the first question. Do we want to try to offer training to our employees still, or not? And if we do we want to put a cap on it? That's probably the first question we would have. And then maybe second, do we still want to continue to require training? And do we still want to continue to, well, I guess that's it, right? Is the requirement of training. Well, and are we going to have to them submit proof of their permit to us? Those are the three questions.
Should legally dubious actions.
Which we don't have a good idea.
Mr. Chair, if I could suggest perhaps using the policy subcommittee of this board to examine some language. I have a very conservative draft from our attorney on this policy. We could start with the most conservative attempt with the policy subcommittee and see if that can be workable, if that's agreeable to the board, and then go from there.
Yeah,
We have some
I think it's us.
people on the website that are listed there.
Yeah, I think it's Eileen and myself. I'm happy to work with you on that. Okay. Does that work with everyone? So what do you need from us then? I mean, we'll get the policy put together. What do you need from us to get our plan?
Mr. Chair, I think just basically, roughing out, getting that draft rule in a position where it can be released publicly, and then just, sharing that out with the public, starting a 45-day comment period. We'll probably need to schedule the hearing date for public comment, and then from there, it's just probably keeping a tally of the comments that you receive so they can all be addressed.
So just to be clear, what this means is you guys are comfortable with the three of us creating a draft policy and getting it released to the public.
I would just throw in my suggestion that we save as much as we can from the old policy, since a lot of public input and thought went into that. Which may not be a lot, sounds like, but I would think that.
If we don't like what you put out there, then let's leave it.
Then we amend it as a.
Mr. Chair, yes, it does. I'm not sure if the window reopens or if the amendments need to be considered at the vote. I'm not sure on that. I have to consult with Scott. Okay.
And what happens if we're unprepared to vote?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Jensen, I believe that July 1st is when the state statute takes effect. We don't have school until August 26th or something like that. I've been bugging Mr. Kolpicki about this since the statute passed, and he said, I'll get you notice, And that's not to say he's delaying things, but he's learning more information. He doesn't seem to worry about having something in place on the date of July 1st. As long as it's in place before the start of the school year, that seems to be the indication he's giving me.
Okay. All right, that's the plan. Can we wrap it up? We are after 10 o'clock. I completely failed. May 30th, Pathfinder graduation, 6 p.m. Pathfinder. LVHS graduation 1 p.m. Same, RSVP is 1 p.m. June 5th, last day of school, right, Megan? June 16th.
You be there in the morning, Dagan?
End of year celebration, staff appreciation at 11 o'clock.
First hour.
June 17th, regular board meeting, August 7th to 8th, WSBA Law Conference, let Carol know.